Chapter 1108. Sure enough, going with Sidu Xian was asking for trouble. Although the blood crystal mine was huge and had more than one entrance, there were more tribes in the wasteland world. Along the way, Murong Yu encountered quite a few people. Those who didn't know Situ Xian's identity were fine. These people either brushed past her or attacked her directly. They wanted to kill Murong Yu and the others and steal their blood crystals. Murong Yu only had one word for these people: kill. He would kill anyone who dared to make a move against him. There were also some people who recognized Situ Xian, although they were not enemies of her tribe. After these people met Situ Xian, they shamelessly followed behind Situ Xian. Both of them had a very good reason for doing so. The blood crystal mine was simply too dangerous. Murong Yu and Yang Qin alone wouldn't be able to protect Situ Xian, so they decided to stay behind to protect her. With the first, there would naturally be a second and even more people. Now, a large group of people followed Murong Yu and the others. This made Murong Yu extremely unhappy. There were even a few times when he couldn't help but beat them away. However, in the end, he did not do anything. Situ Xian finally understood how Murong Yu felt when she pestered Murong Yu and acted shamelessly. However, she usually appeared as a lady from a respectable family or a divine doctor. Therefore, she could only politely refuse these people. However, these people were as shameless as blood fiends. No one was willing to leave, and Situ Xian could not directly drive them away. Murong Yu finally stopped and said to Situ Xian with a gloomy face, "I'll give you a choice. You go with me alone, or you can go with them." With so many people together, Murong Yu could not use his most powerful strength and means. Situ Xian suddenly felt depressed. Could it be that she had to abandon the image she had built up in the past and chase these people away? If so, her prestige would be greatly reduced, which would have a great impact on her and the Green Sun tribe. Thump, thump, dong. Just as Situ Xian frowned and was thinking about how to get rid of those followers, a faint thumping sound came from behind. Situ Xian's furrowed brows immediately relaxed. Do you hear that dull thumping sound that's like a heart? There's a blood lake inside, and I have a way to get to the deepest part of the blood crystal mine. Situ Xian said to Murong Yu excitedly. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Of course, he knew that it was a blood lake. However, he doubted Situ Xian's claim that there was a way to enter the depths of the blood crystal vein from the blood lake. Of course, ordinary people wouldn't be able to enter, but I have a secret technique. Moreover, if we just stay in the blood crystal mine, we will never be able to reach the depths of the mine. Because there are too many blood crystal mines, we don't know which mine leads to the deepest part, Situ Xian explained. Murong Yu was speechless. In other words, you've been looking for the blood lake all this time? Situ Xian nodded, but then she felt that something was wrong. Have you been to the blood lake before? Otherwise, how do you know it's a blood lake? It was Murong Yu's turn to nod. Not only have I been there, but I've also entered the blood lake. Why didn't you say so earlier? Otherwise, we wouldn't have to take so many unnecessary detours. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Situ Xian said angrily. If she had known there was a blood lake, she would have already gone to the deepest part of the blood crystal mine. You didn't tell me either, did you? Murong Yu was depressed and immediately walked in the direction of the thumping sound. Thump, thump, thump. A series of muffled noises could be heard. Everyone who heard these noises felt as if their hearts were being hammered. The louder the sound, the more powerful the hammering. Seal your heart and stop it from beating. Otherwise, if the frequency is the same, your heart and even your godhead will explode. Murong Yu transmitted his voice to Yang Qin and Situ Xian. As for the others? Sorry, Murong Yu wasn't familiar with them, so he didn't care if they lived or died. Bang! Not long after, some of Situ Xian's followers couldn't take it anymore and exploded. As Murong Yu and the others went deeper, more and more people exploded and died. All of you should leave this place. Don't throw your lives away. Situ Xian couldn't bear to see them die. In fact, before she said that, many people had already left the path. After all, they didn't really follow Situ Xian to protect her, but if they were injured, Situ Xian could heal them. In the end, Murong Yu, Yang Qin, and Yang Qin entered the Blood Lake. Situ Xian's followers also entered. In fact, as long as they controlled their bodies well, they would be fine. Didn't they see that there were many people in the lower class in the Blood Lake? There aren't many blood lakes like this in the Blood Crystal Mine. You're very lucky to have encountered two of them. Situ Xian glanced at Murongyu and said, "Do you really have a way to enter the deepest part of the Blood Crystal Mine from the Blood Lake?" Murongyu looked at the Blood Lake and resisted the urge to rush in. Situ Xian nodded. "But the problem now is, how are we going to enter the Blood Lake? There are powerful blood fiends in there that we can't fight against. Moreover, the blood in the Blood Lake contains a terrifying murderous aura. I'm afraid we'll be attacked by the murderous aura before we reach the bottom. That's not a problem. Follow me and you'll be fine." Murongyu smiled and strode toward the Blood Lake. Yang Qin followed closely behind without hesitation. Situ Xian, on the other hand, hesitated for a moment, but she eventually followed. "Dr. Situ, the Blood Lake is extremely terrifying. You'd better stay away from it." Seeing this scene, one of her followers immediately walked up and stopped Situ Xian and said with a serious face, "Swish!" Because of Murongyu's behavior, all the people collecting blood crystals by the Blood Lake fixed their eyes on him. After hearing Situ Xian's followers' words, most of them turned their eyes to Situ Xian. "That's Dr. Situ Xian from the Green Sun Tribe. She actually came here." Someone recognized Situ Xian. Immediately, everyone's gazes fell on her. "Thank you for your kindness." Situ Xian glanced at the man indifferently and then turned to catch up with Murongyu. Are they going to enter the Blood Lake? This thought flashed through everyone's mind. Is that man a super expert from the Green Sun Tribe? Someone looked at Murongyu again. "Dr. Situ, the Blood Lake is really dangerous." Someone still wanted to stop Situ Xian, but Situ Xian pretended not to hear and soon came to Murongyu's side. "I didn't expect someone to care about you so much." Murongyu glanced at Situ Xian and said indifferently, "Do you think I'm like you? No one cares." Situ Xian glared at Murongyu. In fact, if she knew that Murongyu was a disciple of Shengzhen, she would be scared to death. Murongyu just smiled faintly and said, "Are you ready? I'll put you into my treasure space first." As he spoke, he waved his hand and put Yang Qin and Situ Xian into the Hichu Luo Shu. At the same time, he swayed his body and disappeared into the Blood Lake. They really entered the Blood Lake. Many people saw this scene and were all dumbfounded. The experts of the Green Sun Tribe are really different. They really dared to go into the Blood Lake. Some people thought that Murongyu was a warrior of the Green Sun Tribe, so they exclaimed, "Dr. Situ even went into the Blood Lake. I wonder what kind of magic medicine she's looking for." Many people were talking about it and sighing. At this time, Murongyu had already reached the bottom of the Blood Lake. However, unlike the last time, he concealed himself when he entered the Blood Lake this time. Now, he wanted to go to the deepest part of the Blood Crystal Mine, not to fight the blood fiends. I wonder if there are any holy grade blood crystals the size of a hill near the blood spring. Murongyu thought to himself as he hid in the Blood Lake and searched for the blood spring. The Blood Lake was not big, only a few 100,000 miles in radius. With Murongyu's current speed, it took him less than 10 breaths to reach the center of the Blood Lake, even if he slowed down. The blood spring in the last Blood Lake was also in the depths of the Blood Lake. So was the blood spring in this Blood Lake. However, last time, it was in a mountain at the bottom of the lake. This time, the blood spring was in a plain. There really is a holy grade blood crystal, just like the one in the Blood Lake. Murongyu looked at the huge blood crystal and suppressed the greed in his heart with great difficulty. In the end, he entered the world of He Tu and Luo Shu. "Woman, can you really do it? I can't even get close to the blood spring." Murongyu opened the Hichu Luo Shu so that Situ Xian and Yang Qin could see everything outside. There really is a blood spring. When Situ Xian saw the blood spring that was constantly spewing out blood and blood crystals, she immediately became excited. What on earth is this blood spring? Blood and blood crystals are constantly spraying out. Where did all this blood and blood crystals come from? As Yang Qin spoke, It wasn't clear if she was talking to Murong and Murong, or if she was talking to herself. Unfortunately, Murong and Situ Xian could not answer her question. After sighing for a while, Situ Xian said solemnly, I learned a cultivation method from an ancient book that allows us to enter the blood spring and go against the flow. Finally, we can reach the deepest part of the blood crystal mine. What are you waiting for? Aren't you going to hurry up? Murong glared at her and snappily said. Chapter 1109. Because the He-Tu and the Luo Shu were open, Murong and the others could still unleash their attacks from the inside. Therefore, Situ Xian did not have to leave the He-Tu Luo Shu and appear in the outside world when she wanted to attack. In fact, with her strength, she would be discovered by those unparalleled blood fiends as soon as she appeared outside. Even if she was not discovered, she would not be able to withstand the attack of the terrifying murderous aura. Situ Xian stood in place with a solemn expression, her hands constantly forming one obscure seal after another. As she continuously struck out one seal after another, an inexplicable force bombarded the blood spring. Gradually, Murong felt a suction from the blood spring enveloping them. The suction grew stronger and stronger, gradually dragging the He-Tu Luo Shu into the blood spring. After half a day, Situ Xian finally finished making the seals. Are you okay? Situ Xian staggered and almost fell to the ground. Yang Qin immediately took a step forward to support her. Situ Xian's face was pale and her spirit was weak. Obviously, she had used too much strength. Murong glanced at her indifferently. This guy is only at the divine realm. Even if he used all his strength, he could only barely complete the set of seals. If it were Murong or Yang Qin, this would not have happened. After all, in He-Tu Luo Shu, their cultivation levels were normal. However, Situ Xian seemed to treasure the set of seals so much that she did not tell Murong about it. Murong and Yang Qin did not ask about it either. The suction force was getting stronger and stronger. He-Tu Luo Shu was getting closer and closer to the blood spring. As soon as he entered the range of the blood spring, He-Tu Luo Shu would be swallowed. Situ Xian, can we leave this place first? Murong suddenly thought of the blood crystal that was the size of a small mountain not far away. He had to take it with him before leaving this place. Otherwise, it would be a pity. Otherwise, who could guarantee that he would come across such a large piece of holy blood crystal? The suction force of the blood spring will last for another 100 breaths. If you can come back here within 100 breaths of time, you can go anywhere. Situ Xian was weak, but she still answered. Murong nodded, and then Yang Qin and Situ Xian felt the scenery in front of them change. In fact, it was because the He-Tu Luo Shu had been closed again. After all, Murong did not want Situ Xian to see him collecting such a large piece of Saint-grade blood crystal. That would cause a lot of trouble. The Saint-grade blood crystal, which was the size of Small Hill, stood quietly at the bottom of the lake. Hundreds of unparalleled grade blood beasts were lying around it. The blood fiends in this blood lake were much more numerous than the blood fiends in the previous blood lake. Moreover, they were much more powerful. With a thought, the He-Tu Luo Shu quickly enlarged. Before the blood fiends could react, it had already enveloped the real blood crystal. Yang Qin, lend me a hand. Murong shouted. As he burned his chaos divine veins to increase the power of the He-Tu Luo Shu, he borrowed Yang Qin's power directly. After Murong used the Zhe formula to control the others, he could directly borrow their power for his own use. However, in the deserted world, he could not borrow the power of Wenling and the others from the realm of gods. Moreover, although Yang Qin had entered the deserted world previously, her power was suppressed to the realm of heavenly God. Hence, it was useless to borrow her power. However, in the He-Tu Luo Shu world, Yang Qin's power had recovered to that of a rank 10 quasi-saint. However, although Murong could borrow her power directly, in order not to arouse Situ Xian's suspicion, Yang Qin still went to Murong's side. She placed her hand on Murongyu's back and pretended to infuse her power into his body. After receiving the power of a rank 10 quasi-saint, the Hichu Luoshu exploded with power that was 10 times stronger than when Murongyu had first obtained the holy gray blood crystal. Therefore, the incomparably huge saint-grade blood crystal trembled violently for a moment before being sucked into Murongyu's Hitu and Luoshu world with a whoosh. At this moment, the peerless blood fiends that were entrenched around the blood crystal finally reacted. Rumble! The peerless blood fiends were immediately enraged. They exploded with their strongest power and slapped the void in front of them. Retreat! Murongyu roared. Hichu Luoshu instantly shrank to the size of an invisible particle and retreated rapidly. However, just as he was retreating, the attacks from the hundreds of ultimate gray blood beasts were about to land. The terrifying power instantly shattered the void within a radius of several thousand miles, causing spatial turbulence to surge out. Swoosh! Hichu Luoshu turned into a ray of light and charged toward the blood spring. However, at this moment, a peerless blood fiend suddenly clawed a huge hole in the void in front of him. The turbulence in space gushed out like a torrent. Murongyu jumped in fright. With a thought, he controlled the speed of the He-2 and Luoshu and practically charged into the turbulent space head-on. Swoosh! 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 Murongyu controlled Hichu Luoshu and charged in several different directions. However, he did not know if the blood fiends had discovered Hichu Luoshu's location or if they were just attacking randomly. The surrounding void had been shattered. Murongyu could not charge out at all. If he tried to force his way out, he would definitely be sent into the turbulence. Have you entered the blood spring? There are less than 20 breaths of time left. After the blood spring is opened once, it will be many years before it can be opened again. Situ Xian suddenly spoke at this moment. Murongyu frowned slightly. He could not charge out at all. He could not even teleport directly. However, if he could not charge out, he would still be sent into the turbulence by the blood fiends. Holy Lord, are you in trouble? Do you want me to help you? Yang Qin took a few steps forward and asked Murongyu. Previously, after she had collected the blood crystal, she had left Murongyu's side. Murongyu's eyes lit up. Yang Qin's level was not suppressed in this place. If a rank 10 quasi-saint were to take action, even those who had reached the divine heavenly sovereign would not be her match. Situ Xian was a little surprised that Yang Qin had taken the initiative to take action. This was because she could feel that Murongyu was much stronger than Yang Qin. What Situ Xian did not know was that she could only feel that she was in the deserted world. However, they were not in the deserted world. With Murongyu's current strength, he would definitely be killed by Yang Qin. There are less than 15 breaths of time left. Hurry up. Although she was puzzled, Situ Xian urged him anxiously. She did not want to lose this opportunity. After all, there might be blood crystal flowers in the depths of the blood crystal mine, which could allow one to become a divine heavenly sovereign. Murongyu did not hesitate and immediately opened Hichu Luoshu. Yang Qin took a step forward, stretched out her hand, and slapped out. Boom! A peerless blood fiend was sent flying with a single slap from her. However, the superior gray blood beast body was very tough. It did not explode after taking Yang Qin's full blow. Instead, it was only sent flying and suffered some injuries. Yang Qin's face also revealed a look of surprise, but her movements were not slow. She sent out palm after palm. Instantly, one by one, the powerful blood fiends were continuously sent flying. However, Yang Qin's attack naturally alerted the blood beasts to the location of Murongyu and the others. Therefore, more blood beasts pounced on them. Moreover, the blood beasts that were sent flying were infuriated. They roared and attacked. At this moment, countless experts outside the blood lake saw waves of blood rising from the center of the blood lake. Waves of incomparably terrifying energy fluctuations and frightening baleful aura were constantly emitted and soared into the sky. The thumping sound was even heavier and louder. What's going on? Is the expert from the Green Sun tribe fighting with the demonic beasts in the blood lake? Many people were shocked and stopped what they were doing to look at the blood lake. Boom! All of a sudden, a huge blood fiend soared into the sky, drawing a beautiful parabola in the air before finally landing on the ground. Is this ugly and disgusting thing a blood beast? Everyone was shocked and quickly retreated. However, they quickly realized that it was just a blood beast that had lost all signs of life. Therefore, one by one, they surrounded the blood beast and discussed it. Although they had heard of blood beasts, they had never seen one before. Boom! 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 One by one, the blood beasts were sent flying. The blood lake's energy fluctuations were getting stronger. The murderous aura and evil chi were getting denser and denser. The people on the shore of the blood lake were trembling with fear. Hurry up! Hurry up! There are only 5 breaths left. Situ Xian exclaimed anxiously. Yang Qin made a move and opened up a path of blood, but it attracted more blood beasts. Fortunately, Yang Qin was in the Hichu Luoshu world, so there was no problem in using her power. However, with so many blood beasts rushing over, the Hichu Luoshu's speed was greatly hindered. It's been 4 breaths. Situ Xian was getting more and more anxious because they were still a long way from the blood lake. Yang Qin, use all your strength to open up a path of blood. Just move forward. Don't worry about the blood beast attacks, Morongyu said in a deep voice. It's been 3 breaths. Situ Xian reported anxiously. Yang Qin did not dare to hesitate. She immediately unleashed her strongest power and rushed toward the blood lake. The blood beast attacks all landed on the Hichu Luoshu. The He-Tu and the Luo tomes trembled violently as the overflowing damage landed on Murongyu's body. Only 2 breaths left. Situ Xian screamed. Her eyes were filled with despair. Chapter 11:10. In less than 2 breaths of time, Murongyu would have been able to cross a distance of billions of miles in just 1 breath of time in the deity realm, let alone 2 breaths of time. But now, it was difficult for him to take a step forward. He had a feeling of difficulty. It was not because the blood fiends were too powerful, but because the void had been shattered. Murongyu could be thrown into the turbulent space at any time. That was why his speed was so slow. Kill! Yang Qin suddenly shouted. The power of the rank 10 quasi-saint exploded. A huge hand as big as a mountain stretched out and attacked the blood spring. Bang! 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 Wherever the huge hand passed, the blood fiends in its path were sent flying. However, in the process, more blood fiends bombarded Hichu Luoshu. Murongyu even took out the Yin-Yang cauldron. Otherwise, the overflowing damage from Hichu Luoshu would have turned his body, which was at the level of a divine artifact, into dust. We only have 1 breath's time. Situ Xian shouted weakly. She felt that it was impossible to enter the depths of the blood crystal mine from the blood lake. Now's the time. Murongyu's eyes suddenly flashed with a bright light. Because after Yang Qin sent the blood fiends flying, there were no more blood fiends bombarding the void in front of them. Therefore, the void was repaired immediately. Once the void was repaired, the spatial crack disappeared immediately. Murongyu seized the opportunity and rushed out of the Hichu Luoshu in a flash. Whoosh! Before he appeared outside the Hichu Luoshu, the angel wings appeared on his back. Then, with a fierce flap, Murongyu flew through countless space-time and appeared in the blood spring. Time's up, Situ Xian said weakly. At the same time, she was a little angry. If it weren't for Murongyu's meddlesome departure, they would have already entered the depths of the blood crystal mine. Phew, luckily we made it at the last moment. If I'm still in Hichu Luoshu, I'm afraid I won't be able to catch up. Murongyu rushed into the blood fountain. His whole body was pulled into the depths of the blood fountain by a powerful suction force. He could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although controlling the He-Tu and the Book of the Luo wasn't slow, it definitely wasn't as fast as Murongyu's angelic wings. That was why he came out of Hichu Luoshu. Just as he rushed to the edge of the blood spring, he felt the pulling force of the blood spring weaken, and the repulsive force began to strengthen. Furthermore, When Muronyu entered the blood spring, the suction force outside the blood spring had completely disappeared. Whoosh! Whoosh! In Hichu Luo Shu, Situ Xian was still complaining about Muronyu because she couldn't see what was happening outside. However, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. In the next moment, Shi and Yangqin appeared beside Muronyu. Is this the blood fountain? He saw that he was flying forward at high speed, while blood and blood crystals were constantly spurting out from the outside of them. They were going against the flow, but they could not feel the force of the blood fountain. It was really strange. From afar, Muronyu's group of 3 was enveloped by an incomparably huge blood-red barrier. In front of the barrier, there seemed to be a rope forcefully pulling them up against the current. Situ Xian, is there really a blood crystal flower in the depths of the blood crystal vein? Muronyu asked out of boredom. Situ Xian shook her head. She had read about it in ancient books, so how could she dare to confirm it? She did not even know what it was like in the depths of the blood crystal vein. I wonder when we'll arrive. Yangqin frowned slightly and said, they were covered by a huge blood-red shield. Their speed seemed to be extremely fast, but they also seemed to be motionless. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, before Yangqin could finish her words, Muronyu and the other 2 were sent flying as if they'd been shot out of a fountain of blood. With a thought, Muronyu landed lightly on the ground. What's going on? As Muronyu had just been spurted out of the blood fountain, he did not have time to check his surroundings. Therefore, when he stood on the ground and looked at his surroundings, he was immediately shocked. People. Many people. There were people everywhere. Muronyu's surroundings were densely packed with people. When Muronyu looked at them, those people's gazes also shot over, landing on Muronyu's trio. Situ Xian, didn't you say that very few people could reach the depths of the blood crystal vein? How did these people get here? How did they get here? Muronyu came to Situ Xian's side and asked in a deep voice. Situ Xian was also stunned. She could only shake her head in confusion. Holy Lord, these people are very powerful, Yangqin said in a low voice. Muronyu nodded. They were now on a highland that looked like a mountain. This highland was about tens of thousands of miles wide, and there were no less than a few million people standing on it. The weakest among them was the supreme grade, and there were quite a number of them who were the unparalleled grade. Muronyu even felt that there were many people who were as powerful as him in the crowd. These people were all experts who were infinitely close to the divine grade, and they were very powerful. They were Murongyu's strong opponents. These people are here for the blood crystal flower. Muronyu sized them up in his heart, but those people had already looked away. Unable to guess the purpose of their visit, Muronyu began to size up his surroundings. In addition to the highland they were on, there were many similar highlands in the distance. On the highland, there was a huge blood lake. However, these blood lakes were different from the blood lakes outside. These blood lakes were burning like magma, emitting scorching heat and terrifying murderous aura. That kind of loud and muffled thumping sound was extremely loud here. In fact, you could even feel that the earth and even the void were trembling along with the thumping sounds. There was an extremely strong rhythm and might to them. For a moment, Muronyu felt as if he was hallucinating. The thumping sounds were the thumping of a heart, and they were currently inside that incomparably huge heart. Otherwise, why would the earth and void here vibrate rhythmically with the loud noise? However, who would have such a huge heart? It was the heart of famine. The most peculiar thing was that Muronyu saw that in the space he was in, on the ground, and in the void, there were many huge space tunnels. Sometimes, blood would rush into the passageways and form a river. Sometimes, blood would pour into the burning blood lake from the passageways. The space tunnels where the blood flowed out should be the blood springs that Muronyu saw. However, where did the blood in the other tunnels come from? Moreover, according to Murongyu's observation, the blood that flowed in and out of the tunnels was the same as usual. It was not burning. Could it be that the bottom of the blood lake is the mouth of a volcano? Why is it burning the blood here? Muronyu frowned slightly. He believed that this was the deepest part of the blood crystal mine, but his goal had not been confirmed yet. Because this place was too big, he could not see everything with his eyes. In fact, after entering the blood crystal mine, his eyesight and the range of his divine thought had increased a lot, but it was still too far away from the God realm. It's best to look around and see if this is really the heart of a famine. If this is really the heart of a famine, it hasn't stopped beating, which means that the famine is not really dead. This blood shouldn't be the blood of the casualties from the war between the human race and the monster race in the God realm, right? Thinking of this, Murong frowned slightly. The desolate world was the world in the famine's body. The eastern wilderness was huge, and the world in the famine's body should be another space, many times bigger than the eastern wilderness. If Murong was really in the famine's heart, then the blood crystal mine should be the blood vessels of the famine. As for the blood crystals, they should be the crystallization of the famine's blood. Murong, you guessed. The people of the holy world want to revive the famine. Once the famine is revived, the God realm's current strength is no match for the famine. Once the famine is revived, the people in the desolate world will die immediately, and not many people in the God realm will survive. Therefore, the only way to stop the famine's revival was to stop it. But how stop it? Destroy the famine's heart? Murong took a look at his surroundings and shook his head. The famine's heart was so big that it was impossible to even injure it, let alone destroy it. Situ Xian, was there so much blood here before? Murong turned to Situ Xian and asked. According to the ancient books, there was a lot of blood here in the beginning, and the blood in the deepest part was like a volcano eruption, full of vitality. Moreover, there was blood everywhere in the blood crystal mine. It was like a river of blood. But as time passed, the blood here gradually dried up. There was no more blood in the blood crystal mine, and the blood in the deepest part had completely dried up. But now, the blood lake is gradually appearing, and the blood here has increased by a lot. In fact, do you all feel it? A vigorous and extremely powerful life force is gradually recovering. If this was inside Desolate's body, then in the ancient times, the blood should have dried up when Desolate had just been killed. As the famine's life force continued to flow away, its vitality and vitality were dying. Murong was shocked. If the life force here was reviving, it meant that the famine was gradually reviving. If it was really reviving, it would be a great misfortune for the world. Saint Lord, there seems to be a life force reviving. Also, the dull sound seems to be getting louder. Yang Qin's face darkened. Murong sensed it for a moment, and his expression immediately turned ugly. Just as Yang Qin and Yang Chun had said, an enormous amount of life force was gradually recovering. The famine was awakening and reviving. He had to destroy the famine's heart before it revives, or it would be too late. Thousands of thoughts flashed through Murong's mind. Chapter 1111. However, how could they destroy Desolation's heart? If they were in the realm of the gods, Murong could easily find a quasi-saint to destroy Desolation's heart with a slap. However, it was impossible in Desolation World. This was because even a divine, heavenly sovereign was only powerful in his physical body. His cultivation level remained at the divine realm, so he did not have much lethality. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. While Murong was lost in thought, the crowd began to move as they shot towards the other high ground. Previously, they were all gathered here, not daring to take even half a step into the lightning pool. But now, they were all scrambling to get to the front. Murong was puzzled. When he looked over, he saw a bridge made of blood between the two high grounds. The bridge was not big, only allowing one person across at a time. Those people swarmed onto the bridge and quickly flew forward. Murong did not move, but looked at Situ Xian next to him. At this moment, Situ Xian seemed to have thought of something, and her face changed slightly. At the same time, she wanted to go past Murong and walk toward the bridge. Hurry up, we have to go to the other side, too. Murong shook his head. There were so many people now. They could not rush to the front at all. Moreover, many people were now fighting over who would go first. Can't we just fly over? Murong said with a helpless smile. Idiot, If they can fly, do you think they won't fly over directly? It's forbidden to fly here. If they want to go over, besides the bridge, they can only walk through the bottom of the lake. However, even a divine heavenly sovereign might not be able to come out after entering the lake. Situ Xian said anxiously. Is it that magical? Morongyu was still calm. Why are they going over there? Is it because of the blood crystal flower? It shouldn't be because of the blood crystal flower. Apart from the blood crystal flower, it is said that there is something deep in the blood crystal mine that can make people become divine heavenly sovereigns. Immortal blood soul. Immortal blood soul. Morongyu was stunned. Legend has it that a type of soul will appear in the depths of the blood crystal mine. That is the immortal blood soul. He did not know how the indestructible blood soul was formed, but if he could refine it, then he could become a saint. It has the same effect as the blood crystal flower, Situ Xian explained anxiously. Could it be Desolation's soul fragment? If it really is Desolation's soul fragment, I can become a saint after refining it. Morongyu thought to himself. Desolation was also known as the world exterminating bug. It existed in the primal chaos. Even the heavens did not dare to provoke those who were so powerful. Even if it was only in the Eastern Barren Territory, its strength would definitely surpass the deity realm. At the very least, it was at the saint realm. Therefore, if he could refine its soul shards, he should have no problem becoming a saint. If that's true, then it's definitely something good. Good things, yes, should be mine. Morongyu smiled. However, when he saw the chaotic battle going on, his brows furrowed slightly. The bridge formed by blood could only allow one person to pass at a time. Even though the weakest person here was in the supreme sovereign realm, their speed was extremely fast. However, compared to so many people, their speed was still too slow. Moreover, no one knew when the bridge would suddenly collapse. Therefore, the people who were fighting were at a distance from the bridge. Otherwise, if the bridge was destroyed by them, they would not be able to cross. Follow closely behind me. Morongyu sneered and dashed forward. With his physical body that was close to the peak of the supreme sovereign realm, those supreme sovereigns and ordinary supreme sovereigns could not resist him at all. In fact, Morongyu did not even make a move. He just rammed into them. Bang, bang, bang. Wherever Morongyu passed, those who were in front of him were all sent flying. They screamed in pain. Damn it, it's that bastard. The people who were sent flying didn't even know who had sent them flying. They started cursing loudly in the void. As for those who had reacted and were sent flying by Morongyu, they pounced on Morongyu with murderous intent. In an instant, hundreds of people pounced on Morongyu. In the blink of an eye, the previous chaotic battle turned into a group attack. In response, Morongyu sneered in his heart. He did not care about these people at all. Rumble. Just as everyone pounced on Morongyu, there was an earth-shattering sound in front of them. Ah, ah, ah. After the earth-shattering sound, there was a shrill scream. It was extremely terrifying and sent chills down one's spine. Everyone was shocked. When they looked in the direction of the sound, they saw that the blood bridge that was originally built between two highlands had collapsed. Most of the people who were still on the bridge had fallen into the burning blood below, along with the collapsed bridge. They were the ones who had let out the shrill scream. Everyone saw that when those people came into contact with the blood in the lake, their flesh and blood disappeared into thin air. They were annihilated. When all of them fell onto the surface of the lake, they disappeared without a trace. They were completely annihilated, and not even dust was left behind. In the process, some experts who reacted quickly had already soared into the sky. They either flew to another highland or flew over. Rumble, however, at that moment, the blood that was originally like magma suddenly burst into raging waves. In a loud sound, the blood waves rolled towards the people who were running for their lives in a panic. There was no lack of peerless great experts among them. Their speed was extremely fast, like lightning. However, the speed of the blood waves was even faster. The moment they soared into the air, the waves of blood had already enveloped their heads and faces. Ah, 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 shrill screams were heard again. Those experts who were engulfed by the blood waves only had time to let out a scream before they were annihilated. Rumble. In less than an instant, those who fell from the broken bridge were all dead. There was nothing left. At that moment, the blood lake below the broken bridge returned to its original state. Hiss, gasps could be heard from the crowd. Most of them even retreated involuntarily, distancing themselves from the blood lake. If a blood wave were to rush out from the blood lake, wouldn't they be dead? This godforsaken place is too terrifying. Many people looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Yu and the other two retreated as well, distancing themselves from the lake. Could this be the power of Desolation's blood? Yu was shocked. In fact, what Yu didn't know was that this power was just a small matter. When Desolation invaded the divine world, the blood of the living Desolation was terrifying. Even sages couldn't withstand the power of Desolation's blood. They were either killed by the baleful aura or refined by Desolation's blood. Moreover, they were just divine beings. This was because Desolation hadn't revived yet. Otherwise, just the baleful aura alone could kill them all. Little bastard, didn't you want to go to the other side? I'll send you there now. Just as Yu was thinking, a sinister voice was heard. Looking in the direction of the sound, he saw a few dozen people slowly approaching with murderous intent. A bunch of trash. Yu had a mocking look on his face. You may be strong, but what about these two girls? A gray-robed youth pointed at Yangqin and Situ Xian and sneered. Cut the crap. Chase them all away. Another person shouted in a deep voice. Yu's expression changed. He wasn't afraid of these people at all. However, if they were careless and got close to the blood lake, it would be a tragedy. Moreover, Yangqin and Situ Xian were too weak. However, Yu's expression only changed. He wasn't afraid of them at all. Immediately, he took a step forward and looked at the dozens of people indifferently. He said coldly, "Bring it on if you want to die. I'll go first." The gray-robed youth shouted. In a flash, he was already in front of Yu. Then, he threw a punch at Yu's head. "I'll send you on your way." Yu sneered disdainfully. He reached out his hand and grabbed the gray-robed youth's hand. Suddenly, the gray-robed youth felt as though his hand was frozen in place. He couldn't move at all. Immediately, his expression changed drastically. With a shout, he tried to break free. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a powerful energy penetrating his body. Then, he was shocked to find that he was already in the air. He turned into a stream of light and charged toward the blood lake. The gray-robed youth was scared half to death. With a thought, he wanted to fly back. Go! Yu's voice rang in his ears. At the same time, Yangqin and the others saw that Yu had already risen into the air. He appeared behind the gray-robed youth in an instant and slammed his palm on the gray-robed youth's body. With a bang, the gray-robed youth was sent flying into the air above the blood lake. Rumble. As soon as the gray-robed youth entered the air above the blood lake, a huge wave of blood surged from the blood lake. The wave of blood drowned the gray-robed youth. Then, everyone heard a shrill scream from the gray-robed youth. Then, the wave of blood returned to the blood lake and returned to its original state. Hiss, seeing this, the dozens of people who were rushing over stopped in their tracks. They looked at Yu in shock. However, they didn't dare to take another step forward. Chapter 11:12. Looking at the dozens of people who were terrified, Yu sneered in his heart. All of a sudden, his figure flashed and disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, he was already among the dozens of people. Bang! After a loud noise, a Supreme Realm expert's head exploded, and he died an unnatural death. It was Yu who exploded this person's head. Boom! After smashing that person with a punch, he slammed his body into another warrior who was in the Supreme Realm and smashed him into pieces. Puff! After killing two people in an instant, Yu had already rushed to the side of the third person and then clawed at the person's head, directly crushing his soul. It was only at this moment that the crowd came to their senses. In a short period of time, their anger towards Yu far exceeded their fear of Yu. One by one, They roared and rushed towards Murong-yu. Murong-yu sneered again and again, and fearlessly went up to meet them. A series of muffled explosions and miserable screams rang out. In less than a dozen breaths of time, the corpses of the dozen experts were strewn all over the ground. All of them had been killed by Murong-yu. I have a very bad shortcoming. Anyone who wants to kill me, I will kill them before they can kill me. Maybe I'm not the strongest, but before I die, I will definitely drag many people down with me. Murong-yu glanced indifferently in front of him, his expression indifferent and his voice cold. Swish! When they met Murong-yu's gaze, most people involuntarily took a step back. With this, no one would dare to make a move against Murong-yu. After all, they didn't have any grudges with him to begin with. If they were accidentally killed, wouldn't it be a big loss? Yang Qin and Situ Xian came to Murong-yu's side. Situ Xian, didn't you say that after the blood spring opened once, it would take a few years to open again? Why are people still coming in? Murong-yu asked with a frown. This was because during this process, Murong-yu kept seeing people appear on this high ground. Although a portion of them had just gone to the other high ground, the number of people here quickly surpassed the previous number, almost reaching 10 million people. Situ Xian shook her head. These people definitely didn't come from the blood spring. Do you think everyone can go deep into the blood lake and open the blood spring? He must have come here through some other means. As for what method it was, Situ Xian didn't know. Aren't you the divine doctor of the desolate world? How come I don't know? Situ Xian immediately glared at Murong-yu. It's true that I'm a godly doctor, but I'm still very young. There are many things that I don't know. This is normal, okay? Murong-yu smiled faintly. His gaze appeared on the surface of the lake, and his eyes shone brightly. A dangerous aura suddenly rose in Situ Xian's heart. Murong-yu, you're not thinking of crossing the lake, are you? That's right. Murong-yu did not deny it. He was indeed thinking of doing so. Situ Xian almost fainted. He knew how terrifying the blood lake was, and he still wanted to go in? Could it be that this guy's brain was fried? The bridge should appear again. Let's just wait. Who knows when the bridge will appear? If we wait a few eras, it will be too late. Even if the bridge appears, are you sure you can rush across it immediately? Situ Xian rolled her eyes, but she also knew that Murong-yu was telling the truth. With your strength, you should be able to cross the bridge immediately. Situ Xian was not very confident. Huh? While Situ Xian was talking, Murong-yu felt an unusual fluctuation in the void in front of him. He immediately looked over. He didn't know when a bridge had appeared between the two high grounds. Murong-yu's heart skipped a beat. He immediately reached out and grabbed Yang Qin and Situ Xian, one in each hand. Then, the angelic wings appeared on his back. The angelic wings flapped fiercely, and Murong-yu turned into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot. What are you doing? When Murong-yu stepped onto the bridge, Situ Xian cried out in alarm. The next moment, she saw the blood magma below like a raging wave. For a moment, she thought that Murong-yu was going to carry her over by force. She was so frightened that she screamed. Her hands involuntarily hugged Murong-yu, and she even wrapped her body around him. Situ Xian's sudden move made Murong-yu stumble and almost fall off the bridge. He immediately glared at Situ Xian. You're so old that your teeth are about to fall out. Don't be so scared like a little girl, okay? If we fall because of this, the three of us will be dead. Huh? You're walking on a bridge? Situ Xian only just realized that Murong-yu was running on the bridge. She immediately exclaimed in embarrassment. Then, her pretty face turned red with a schwa sound. In the end, she even lowered her head, not daring to look at Murong-yu. Okay, you can go down now. You're too heavy. Murong-yu suddenly threw Situ Xian down from his arms. Situ Xian was immediately angry. She glared at Murong-yu with a face full of displeasure. She was the standard weight. Huh, are we the first to come here? Situ Xian looked at the bridge, not far behind them. She realized that they had only crossed a small part of the bridge. Murong-yu, your reaction speed is not bad. Situ Xian looked at Murong-yu with a smile. Her eyes were full of admiration. Do you think I'm like you? That slow? If it were you, you wouldn't be able to set foot here even if you waited a few eras. Morong said angrily. As he spoke, he was also looking around. This height was similar to the previous height. It was also tens of thousands of miles wide. However, those who came here before were no longer here. They should have gone deeper, right? Let's go. Morong extended his body and walked deeper. Ah. However, at this moment, there was a series of screams behind them. Looking in the direction of the screams, Morong saw that the bridge had collapsed again. So fast, Morong could not help but be a little surprised. When the bridge first appeared, it collapsed after hundreds of thousands of people came over. This time, only about 10,000 people came over. It seems that these bridges collapse randomly. Morong pondered in his heart. Then, he quickly walked forward with Situ Xian and Yang Qin. Soon, they came to the other side of the high ground. There was another high ground in the distance. However, it was different from the previous two high grounds. This was because there was a small path that only allowed one person to pass between the two high grounds. It zigzagged and zigzagged until it reached the high ground on the other side. Morong stopped in his tracks. Why don't we continue? Situ Xian was a little anxious. She used her footwork and was about to walk onto the path. However, Morong pressed her shoulder. If you don't want to die, don't go up. Morong stared at the path and said solemnly. Situ Xian's face changed slightly. She remembered the bridge they had passed before. Idiot! Seeing Morong's group of 3 stop, the experts that had been tailing them sneered. Without any hesitation, they charged towards a small path. Some of the more cautious people stopped like Morong and watched those people. They moved forward quickly. There was nothing strange. There was no movement in the blood lake below. Soon, the first person who rushed into the path came to the middle of the two high grounds. A bunch of idiots. Where's the danger? If I get to the front, the indestructible blood soul will be mine. This person seemed to have seen the scene of him obtaining the indestructible soul body and ascending in broad daylight. However, at this moment, an intense aura of death enveloped his heart. Immediately, he was shocked. His speed suddenly increased, and he rushed forward. Whoosh! However, at this moment, a blood-red light suddenly emerged from the blood lake beside the path and swept toward the expert at lightning speed. Get lost! The expert roared. As he rushed forward, he threw a punch at the blood-red light. It's the tail of the blood fiend. This person is doomed. Morong's eyes flashed. He had already seen the true face of the blood-red light. The blood fiend was at least of the unparalleled level, while the expert was only of the supreme level. Sure enough, before Morong could finish his sentence, the expert of the supreme level let out a scream. He was swept down the path by the blood fiend's tail. Rumble! At this moment, streaks of blood-red light erupted from the blood lake beside the path. They targeted the experts on the path and bombarded them. So many blood fiends. Situ Xian was shocked. The blood fiends that attacked were at least of the supreme level. They were all very powerful, much more powerful than the blood fiends outside. Moreover, there were many blood fiends attacking one person. If they wanted to reach the other side, they would have to pass through this path and the blood fiends. Morong suddenly smiled. This path might be able to stop 99% of the people, but it would not be able to stop him. I'm ready to go. You two go into my treasure first. Morong transmitted his voice to Yang Qin and Situ Xian. Then, he put them into the Hichu Luo Shu. With the strength of the two of them, it was obviously impossible for them to pass through this small path. After putting away the two of them, Morong's figure flickered and disappeared from where he was standing. He quickly rushed towards a small path. Invisibility. Chapter 11:13. Morong's sudden disappearance did not catch anyone's attention. They had all witnessed Morong's speed and thought that Morong had gone somewhere else. The moment he turned invisible, Morong had already arrived at the entrance of the small path. At this moment, the small path had calmed down because everyone who had been there had been killed by the blood fiends. Seeing how terrifying the blood fiends were, no one dared to step into this place. Without any hesitation, Murong Yu stepped into the small path. Then, he dashed towards the opposite side without stopping. Although he was invisible and was confident that the blood fiends would not be able to discover him, it was better to be safe than sorry. Moreover, ever since Murong Yu stepped onto the small path, his mood had become heavy. He vaguely felt that something was wrong. However, no matter what, he still had to cross this small path. Moreover, Murong Yu had already stepped onto this small path. There was no reason for him to turn back. Murong Yu was extremely fast. Very soon, he had reached the center of the small path. The first person to enter the small path had also arrived here before the blood fiends appeared. Murong Yu's heart suddenly tightened as a dangerous aura enveloped his heart. Suddenly, a wave of blood shot up to the sky from the lake to the left of Murong Yu. Then, a ray of blood shot out from the depths of the blood lake. It traversed through time and space and swept towards Murong Yu. He had been discovered. Murong Yu's heart sank. The feeling in his heart was getting stronger. One must know that in the realm of the gods, as long as he was invisible, even a rank 10 quasi-saint would not be able to discover him. But here, his invisibility was ineffective? Was it because the blood fiends were too strong? But that was not right. Previously, in the blood lake, those peerless demonic beasts did not discover him either. In fact, Murong Yu had forgotten a very basic thing. Where was he now? However, in the wasteland world, within the eastern wilderness, if Desolate really revived, he would definitely be the ruler of Desolate World. Even if Murong Yu's stealth technique was a billion times better, it would not be able to hide from it. Therefore, it was only normal for them to be discovered. What's going on? There's no one there, so why are those blood fiends attacking? Seeing this scene, many people at the edge of the blood lake were astonished. With a thought, Murong Yu's speed suddenly increased. He did not want to fight with these bloody beasts. He only wanted to quickly reach the high ground on the other side. However, how could it be so simple? Murong Yu had just taken a step forward when the second blood fiend rushed out from the other side of the blood lake and attacked him. Boom! 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 After the second blood fiend, more blood fiends rushed out. They were all blood fiends of the extreme gray blood fiend realm in every direction. All of a sudden, all of Murong Yu's escape routes were blocked. Moreover, many blood fiends had locked onto him and were charging toward him. Kill! Murong Yu roared and finally attacked. He used the elephant drawing fist to attack the blood fiend that was blocking his way. Boom! A terrifying power erupted, and the blood fiend let out a blood-curdling scream as it was sent flying. However, due to the attack, Murong Yu's figure was also forced to fall out of the void. It's him? When did he rush to the small path? We didn't even notice it. Everyone was shocked when they saw Murong Yu's figure appear out of thin air. Stealth. These two words immediately appeared in their minds. A murderous aura filled the air, and the nauseating smell of blood assailed their nostrils. One after another, powerful blood fiends rushed out of the blood lake and pounced towards Murong Yu. Murong Yu made a grabbing motion in the air and caught the Saint-grade divine artifact, Soul Chaser. Powerful energy was injected into the artifact, and black spear radiance burst out from it. Boom! Total annihilation. Murong Yu exerted force in his hand and swept out the long spear in his hand. Instantly, several blood fiends that were charging toward him from the right were sent flying. Ask the heavens spear art. Angrily ask the heavens. Ask the heavens. Murong Yu displayed a powerful combat skill and forced the long spear to emit spear radiance. The radiance enveloped his body and strangled the blood fiends in all directions. All the blood fiends that came close were either blown up or sent flying. However, there were simply too many blood fiends. After Murong Yu sent one blood fiend flying, two more blood fiends rushed toward him. They densely surrounded Murong Yu on the small path, making it impossible for him to move forward or retreat. In an instant, Murong Yu was in danger. Moreover, this was not the scariest thing. The scariest thing was that when the blood fiends rushed out of the blood lake, they brought with them magma-like blood lake water. The lake water contained a terrifying amount of energy. Even a sacred artifact level body would not be able to withstand it for a moment and would be completely annihilated. Therefore, Murong, you could only raise his strength to the maximum and form a shield around his body to protect himself. However, it was useless. The moment the energy shield came into contact with the blood, it was quickly destroyed. Fortunately, Murong Yu had the Tree of Life to replenish the energy that he used up. Otherwise, his energy would have been depleted long ago. This person can't make it. He won't be able to hold on for much longer. The crowd in the distance looked at Murong Yu in disgust. However, this kid's strength is not bad. He has killed dozens of blood fiends, right? However, the more blood fiends he kills, the angrier they get. More blood fiends will rush out. He is about to be drowned by the blood fiends. While the crowd was discussing, their faces were filled with worry. If Murong Yu, who was so powerful, could not pass, how could they pass? What about the hundreds of thousands of people who had passed? Had they all passed, or had they all been killed by the blood fiends? For a moment, the tens of thousands of people had a bad feeling in their hearts. Now, they could neither advance nor retreat. There were more and more blood fiends, and their cultivation levels were also higher. There were even a few powerful blood fiends that hadn't been sent flying by Murong Yu's attacks despite clashing with him. There shouldn't be any divine-level blood fiends appearing, right? Murong Yu gloomily pondered. At the same time, with a thought, he summoned the He-Tu and Luo Shu. The moment the He-Tu Luo Shu appeared, it quickly enlarged until it was the size of a millstone. It covered the top of Murong Yu's head, and rays of yellow light shone down on him, protecting him firmly. However, the moment the He-Tu Luo Shu appeared, it was attacked violently by the blood fiends. The frightening power continued to bombard Murong Yu, causing damage to his body. The attacks caused his blood and qi to become restless, churning like a raging sea. Yang Qin, attack. Murong Yu opened up a corner of the He-Tu Luo Shu and shouted into Yang Qin's ear. Yang Qin immediately struck out with her palm. Bang! Yang Qin's palm landed on a blood fiend, and a loud, dull sound was heard. However, it was only a dull sound, and the blood fiend did not move at all. Murong Yu's figure staggered as he nearly lost his balance and fell into the blood lake below. What's going on? His face instantly darkened. Yang Qin was also a little depressed. Without any hesitation, she struck out a second time. However, just like the first strike, it was unable to move the blood fiend, let alone injure it severely. It was even sent flying. After a few more strikes, the result was the same. Yang Qin's power was not restricted, but after leaving the He-Tu Luo Shu, it rapidly weakened and became the power of a heavenly god. It had no effect on the blood fiends. Yang Qin could not help him anymore. At this moment, there were more blood fiends than before, and Murong Yu could not take it anymore. Bastards, I'll kill all of you! Murong Yu suddenly roared. The He-Tu Luo Shu instantly enlarged and covered the sky. Then, it opened up and enveloped the blood fiends. The Chaos God Meridians burned in large quantities, and Murong Yu directly borrowed Yang Qin's power. Suddenly, a terrifying suction force rushed out of the He-Tu Luo Shu and enveloped the blood fiends around Murong Yu. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. These blood fiends were not prepared at all. They did not even have time to react before they were sucked into the He-Tu Luo Shu world. Kill! Seeing the blood fiends being sucked into the He-Tu Luo Shu, Yang Qin immediately shouted and attacked. In here, the blood fiends were not able to withstand a single blow. Yang Qin slapped down, and dozens of powerful demonic beasts were blasted into a bloody mist. The people from the realm of the gods are so powerful. Situ Xian was shocked to see this. In fact, even a level 10 quasi-saint would not have an easy time killing blood fiends of the unparalleled realm. Yang Qin was so powerful because she was in the He-Tu Luo Shu world. These blood fiends were suppressed when Murong Yu kept them in the He-Tu Luo Shu. That was why Yang Qin was able to kill them so easily. What's going on? Did he keep all the blood fiends in the sacred artifact? Isn't he afraid that the sacred artifact will explode? Seeing Murong Yu's actions, The people on the high ground could not help but exclaim. Although sacred artifacts were powerful, they could easily explode if too many experts were to destroy them inside. Moreover, controlling the blood fiends required a large amount of energy. This person's energy seems to be inexhaustible. He's really sick. After capturing dozens of blood fiends in an instant, Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, there were still many blood fiends around him. However, Yu was not afraid. He opened the Hichu Luoshu and absorbed the blood fiends in a frenzy. At the same time, he started moving again and shot forward. Who knew how many blood fiends there were? He was not here to kill blood fiends. Moreover, it would be a tragedy if he provoked a divine-level blood fiend. Chapter 11:14. Yu's sudden outburst caught those blood fiends off guard. Any demon beast that approached Hichu Luoshu was immediately taken into the Hichu Luoshu world by Yu. And once they entered Hichu Luoshu, these blood fiends that dominated this place completely became ants and were directly killed by Yangqin. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yu dashed forward. After a mad dash, he successfully broke through the small path and arrived at the top of the high ground. Roar! 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 Blood fiends rushed out of the blood lake one after another. They even rose into the air and floated in the air. Murderous aura surged as they looked at Su Hao with murderous intent. All of them wanted to rush up and beat Yu to death. However, there seemed to be some kind of rule here. Blood fiends could attack people passing by on the small path, but they couldn't attack people on the high ground. In fact, blood fiends were extremely aggressive. Once they discovered that their territory had been invaded, they would erupt with extremely brutal counterattacks. But they couldn't leave the blood lake. It was the same for the blood fiends in the blood lake outside, and the blood fiends in Desolation's heart. Therefore, these blood fiends only roared at Yu through the air. With a thought, Sidu Xian and Yangqin were released by Yu. Do we really pass? After coming out, Situ Xian immediately exclaimed, her face full of excitement. However, Yangqin didn't feel anything. To her, there was actually no purpose in entering this place. Therefore, there naturally wouldn't be any surprise. Don't be happy too quickly. Who knows if there are even more terrifying stages waiting for you behind. Yu glanced at Situ Xian and said calmly. The joy on Situ Xian's face stopped abruptly. She glared at Yu and said angrily, "Can't you give me a blow and let me be happy first?" Yu shrugged. "All right, then continue to stay here and be happy. We'll get going first." With that, Yu turned and walked forward. Yangqin followed closely behind. Although Sidu Xian was a little unhappy, she still followed. If she did not follow Yu, she would not be able to go deeper by herself. Furthermore, it was impossible for him to return. This was the third highland, and it was obviously much smaller than the previous two highlands. Not long after, Yu met the person who had arrived before them. Thousands of people, less than 10,000. When he saw these people, Yu couldn't help but frown. This was because there were hundreds of thousands of people on the second continent. In other words, out of hundreds of thousands of people, only a small number of people had successfully passed through that small path. The passing rate was 1%. Seeing Yu and the other two walking over, those people also looked over in surprise. However, they only looked at them for a moment before turning their heads away. Why were Yu and the other two able to come here? They were not interested in knowing. What they were interested in was how to get to the high ground on the other side, which was the fourth high ground. Legend has it that there are only 4 highlands in the depths of the blood crystal mine. The first 3 highlands are not dangerous, but the 4th highland is extremely dangerous. The blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul might exist on the 4th highland, Situ Xian said to Yu through telepathy. Yu looked over. There was no small path between the 2 highlands. As for whether there was a bridge, he did not know. However, the high ground on the other side was shrouded in a blood-red mist. It was impossible to see what was inside. There is no small path and no bridge. How are we going to get there? Someone in the crowd suddenly cursed. He was clearly unhappy. There must be another way to get through this damn blood lake. It's just that we haven't found it yet, someone said in a low voice. The distance between the two highlands was not very far. It was about 10,000 miles. This distance was nothing to them at all. Especially in the realm of the gods, it was even more insignificant. However, here, it was like a natural chasm that was difficult to cross. It was not only because of the blood fiends, but also because of the fresh blood in the blood lake. They could still resist the blood fiends for a while. However, if they were stained by the fresh blood, they would not be able to resist it. It was the same even for the experts of the unparalleled realm. This was because they had personally experienced the horror of the blood lake. Like Murongyu, they had to force their way through the small path. Among them, a small number of them were killed by the blood fiends. However, most of the people who died were directly annihilated by the blood in the blood lake. Therefore, they were frightened when they saw the blood lake. They did not dare to get too close. Murongyu, I heard from the ancient books that if you want to reach the last highland, you have to rely on your own strength, Situ Xian said to Murongyu through telepathy. Murongyu frowned. You mean we can only fly over? Situ Xian nodded. I'm afraid so. Murongyu knew that he wouldn't be able to withstand the might of the blood lake. Moreover, there were so many blood fiends. If he could extend his divine thought to the other side of the highland, he could teleport over. Of course, he could not guarantee that he would be able to teleport successfully. Perhaps he would be knocked out of the void by the blood fiends or some other force before he could empty it. Once he appeared, he would be attacked by the blood fiends and blood waves. With his current strength, he could not resist at all. Hichu Luoshu should be able to resist the blood lake, right? Murongyu contacted Hichu in his mind. Definitely. Do you want to enter Hichu Luoshu and go over directly? Hichu asked in a deep voice. Murongyu nodded. This was the only way. Otherwise, he would not be able to go over. This is not impossible. However, if you're inside Hichu Luoshu, you will not be able to attack the outside. Once the blood fiends break through the void, Hichu Luoshu may be thrown into the turbulent space. As for whether you want to do this, is still up to you. Hichu told Murongyu the worst-case scenario and left the decision to him. If the fourth island really has blood crystal flowers and undying blood souls, we must get them no matter what. Moreover, we must destroy the heart of desolation. We must go over to the fourth highland. Murongyu muttered with a solemn expression. The two of you stay here. I will go over and take a look. Murongyu thought for a while and decided to go to the fourth highland. However, he did not want Sidu Xian and Yangqin to take the risk with him. Sacred Master, I will not stay here. Yangqin immediately said in a deep voice. Humph, don't think of keeping me here. If you die, I can't go anywhere. I might as well take the risk together. Situ Xian glared at Murongyu and said with a cold smile. All right, but you can't blame me if something happens. Murongyu sighed and waved his hand. Yangqin and Situ Xian disappeared from the ground. Yangqin, I don't need you to do anything later. You just need to limit your power. Murongyu's deep voice rang in Yangqin's ears. At the same time, he took out the Hichu Luoshu. The Hichu Luoshu transformed into an armor that covered Murongyu's entire body, leaving only his eyes exposed. At the same time, he grabbed the Yin-Yang cauldron in his hand. Murongyu wanted to use these two heaven-defying treasures to fight against the Blood Lake. However, he did not enter the Hichu Luoshu. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as Murongyu was about to break through, several figures shot toward him from behind. What a powerful aura! Murongyu felt his heart sink. Waves of aura pressed down on him. He felt as though there was a huge, sacred mountain floating above his head. The pressure was immense. He turned around and saw that two men and a woman had appeared not far behind him. The aura that made Murongyu feel heavy, as though there was a sacred mountain above his head, came from them. Sacred Heavenly Sovereign. Murongyu's heart skipped a beat. Among the crowd, there were already peerless grades who cried out in surprise. At this moment, everyone, including Murongyu, felt as if they were being suppressed. especially the experts from the desolate world. Their bodies couldn't help but tremble. Their souls were trembling, and they had the urge to kneel down and submit themselves to Yishiwen. Swoosh! For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the three of them. Murong-Yu also looked at the three of them. The three of them did not stand out in any way. They were the kind of people who did not stand out in the crowd. But looking at them, the three of them were like a sacred mountain standing in the divine realm. His strength was so great that it intimidated all the worlds in the universe. They just stood there, but ripples appeared in the void around them. It was as though the void could not withstand their power and could be shattered by them at any time. If they wanted to attack, they could destroy the void with a punch. Powerful, extremely powerful. A strong sense of danger rose in that person's heart. He felt that if any of the three of them attacked him, he would not be able to take a single blow. The power contained in the three of them was too terrifying. It was even more powerful than a sacred artifact. After all, a sacred artifact was an inanimate object. Even if it had an artifact spirit, it was still the same. But a deity whose physical body had reached the sacred artifact realm was a living sacred artifact realm. Their physical body was not inferior to a sacred artifact realm, and their strength was not inferior to a sacred artifact realm. They were definitely overlords. Even if they are only in the sky realm, in the divine realm, their strength has reached the level of a quasi-saint. And if they reach the level of a quasi-saint, even a rank 10 quasi-saint would not be able to kill them. It might even be impossible. Yangqin's voice rang in Murong-Yu's ears. It was a little serious. The cultivation base of a saint heavenly sovereign had already reached the sky sovereign realm. It was 2 cultivation realms higher than a peerless sovereign. Hearing that, Murong-Yu was secretly shocked, because if his strength could reach the peerless sovereign when he left the divine realm, he would be able to fight a quasi-saint. Chapter 11:15. The 3 saint heavenly sovereigns simply stood there as their indifferent gazes swept across the faces of Murong-Yu and the others. Anyone who met the gazes of these 3 people would involuntarily avert their gazes or simply lower their heads. They dare not have too much contact with experts of this level. There seemed to be a special power in their eyes. If they stayed in contact with them for too long, they were afraid that they would not be able to control themselves and kneel down to surrender. No one wanted to be someone else's servant or slave. Murong-Yu also lowered his head, not because he was afraid that he would submit to these 3 people. In fact, he was very upset because the 3 people looked at them indifferently, as if they were looking at a group of ants. Anyone who was treated like an ant and not recognized by others, he would feel displeased in his heart. In fact, Murong-Yu also regarded many people as ants and did not care about them at all. But it was one thing to regard others as ants and another to be regarded as ants. However, the divine heavenly sovereign was much stronger than him, so he had no choice but to suppress his displeasure. Otherwise, how could he beat them to death? Not to mention that Murong-Yu did not have the ability now. Even if he had the ability, he would not do it immediately. Ha! I hope we're not too late. Just as Murong-Yu lowered his head, a hearty laugh came. Then, a figure flew over from afar. Before long, an old man in gray came to the side of the 3 super experts of the divine level. It's Grandpa Li Lu of the Green Sun tribe. In Hichu Luo Shu, Situ Xian suddenly became excited. A divine level expert of the Green Sun tribe? Murong-Yu smiled faintly. Situ Xian, now the expert of your tribe is here. He's more than enough to protect you. You'd better stay with him. With that, Murong-Yu was about to release Situ Xian from Hichu Luo Shu. No, if you dare to let me out, I will never let you go. Situ Xian immediately shouted. Even though Li Lu was powerful and had a good relationship with Situ Xian didn't care. However, Situ Xian didn't want to go out, because she felt that following Murong-Yu around was more interesting. Murong-Yu was startled, and his hand trembled. Situ Xian was not released by him in the end. Your tribe's experts are all here. Why are you still bothering me? Murong Yu felt helpless. Hee hee, it's much more interesting to follow you. It won't be too late for me to go back after we leave the blood crystal mine, Situ Xian said with a smile. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. While they were talking, more and more figures were flying over from afar. With every person that came over, Murong Yu's heart sank. In the end, Murong Yu's heart sank to the bottom. There's no hope. Dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns. Murong Yu was very powerful, and he was one of the top experts in the divine heavenly sovereign realm. However, against divine heavenly sovereigns, there was no way he could compare. With so many divine heavenly sovereigns, even if there were blood crystal flowers and undying blood souls, it would have nothing to do with Murong Yu. Haha, what are you all doing here? Since you all don't want to go over, I'll go over first. Li Lu suddenly laughed, and then he soared into the sky and rushed toward the fourth plateau. Humph! When Li Lu soared into the sky, a few divine heavenly sovereigns also soared into the sky and rushed toward the fourth plateau. In an instant, they rushed into the blood lake. Boom! 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 Suddenly, the blood fiends rushed out from the blood lake one after another, charging towards the super experts. At the same time, waves of blood waves soared into the sky and rushed toward Li Lu and the others. Li Lu laughed and threw out a punch. He killed a divine, heavenly sovereign realm blood fiend that was charging toward him. Bang! The blood fiend instantly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It couldn't be any more dead. However, as soon as Li Lu killed the blood fiend, 10,000 layers of blood waves came crashing down on him. Li Lu laughed, and his body shone with strong and dazzling divine light. At the same time, he clapped his hands continuously. Boom! 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 Waves of terrifying power came out of his body and bombarded the blood waves. Although the blood waves were terrifying, they could kill a divine, heavenly sovereign realm expert. However, before it could get close to Li Lu, it was already blown up by Li Lu. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Li Lu stepped forward and rushed into the blood lake. On the other hand, the others did the same. Although the blood fiends and blood waves prevented them from passing through the area quickly, they could not stop them. In the process, dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns soared into the sky and rushed into the blood lake. In an instant, countless blood fiends and blood waves soared into the sky and rushed toward the divine, heavenly sovereigns. However, the difference in strength between the two parties was too big. The blood fiends and blood waves could not do anything to the divine, heavenly sovereigns. Murong Yu and the others saw Li Lu and the others approaching the fourth continent quickly. What terrifying blood fiends and blood waves! Seeing this, the faces of the people on the third continent changed. If they rushed over, they would have been annihilated. From the looks of it, they won't be able to reach the fourth continent. Roar! 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 All of a sudden, terrifying roars came from the depths of the blood lake. Plop! The sound was extremely terrifying. A large number of experts on the third continent were directly shaken to the ground. Even Murong Yu could not help but take a few steps back. After the terrifying roars, huge blood fiends that were hundreds of miles long shot out from the depths of the blood lake. As soon as they appeared, a terrifying murderous aura rushed toward them. It was more than 100 times stronger than those divine, heavenly sovereigns. Moreover, the aura they exuded shook the people on the third continent to the point of vomiting blood. Divine, heavenly sovereigns. Murong Yu's pupils shrank, and 2 balls of dazzling light shot out of his eyes. Boom! 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 As soon as the divine, heavenly sovereigns appeared, they locked on to the divine, heavenly sovereigns and pounced on them. The moment the divine, heavenly sovereigns exchanged blows, the void around them was constantly broken. Even the spatial turbulence was created. The terrifying impact swept in all directions. Instantly, the divine, heavenly sovereigns were affected and exploded one by one. Even the waves of blood were unable to approach. Before they could even get close, they had already been blasted apart by the bombardment. The people on the third continent kept retreating. Some of them even vomited blood because of the impact. Fortunately, this was the deserted world. If the quasi-saint level experts were to fight in the deserted world, the void within hundreds of millions of miles would be destroyed. The people on the third continent would probably be annihilated. Muronyu did not retreat. Instead, he stood on the spot like a mountain. The battle was intense. Both sides were evenly matched. However, Muronyu knew that if the battle continued, the Blood Fiends would definitely win. This was because there were definitely more divine, heavenly sovereigns under the Blood Lake. Once the Blood Fiends rushed out, the dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns would not be their match. It was obvious that the dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns knew this as well. This was because they were fighting as they advanced, approaching the fourth continent at a fast but slow pace. At this moment, other than the divine, heavenly sovereigns and the demonic beasts, there was also the blood waves that kept surging into the sky. The blood fiends of the divine, heavenly sovereigns had all quietened down. Now's the time. Muronyu suddenly roared in his heart. Then, the angelic wings appeared on his back. With a single thought, his angelic wings began to flap rapidly. Whoosh! Muronyu instantly turned into a ray of black light and disappeared on the spot. He rushed toward the fourth continent. In the Hichu Luo Shu, the chaotic, godly meridian burned furiously. Muronyu directly borrowed Yang Qin's power. Instantly, the Hichu Luo Shu emitted waves of yellow divine light, enveloping Muronyu completely. He also took out the Yin-Yang cauldron, which floated above his head. Streaks of chaotic fire fell down and enveloped him. Muronyu, on the other hand, simply raised his speed to the limit and madly rushed towards the fourth continent. Whoosh! 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 Muronyu directly rushed into the area where the two sides were fighting. Suddenly, terrifying shockwaves and shockwaves came crashing down, trying to kill Muronyu. The Yin-Yang cauldron spun and spat out chaotic fire. Suddenly, the shockwaves and shockwaves were annihilated. Muronyu took the opportunity to destroy everything in his way and rushed toward the fourth continent. Roar! The first to react were not the human experts, but the blood fiends. One by one, the blood fiends roared and rushed out of the blood lake, pouncing on Muronyu. Muronyu did not dare to tangle with the blood fiends. If he was targeted by the divine, heavenly sovereigns, he would be in trouble. Therefore, he kept moving up and down, left and right in the void to avoid fighting with the blood fiends. Good lad, you are so cunning. I have underestimated you. At this moment, the human experts finally reacted. Muronyu suddenly let out a long roar that resembled a dragon's roar. In a flash, Muronyu had passed through many obstacles and stood on the fourth continent. Now, he was the first person to set foot on the fourth continent. Once again, I thank all of you. Muronyu chuckled and expressed his thanks. Then, he increased his speed and shot towards the depths of the cave. Of course, he would take the opportunity to get the blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul while those people were still fighting. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other. Many of the human divine, heavenly sovereigns were angry. How could they not be angry when Muronyu took advantage of them? On the other hand, the people from the third continent had looks of envy on their faces. Some of them were even itching to imitate Muronyu. Chapter 11:16. As their figures flickered, many people had already imitated Muronyu and rushed into the bloody lake. Although they had Murongyu's heart, they did not have Murongyu's strength. Most of them were blasted into a bloody mist by the terrifying impact and the aftermath of the power before they could even get close to the battle. Even if some of them could get close, they could not dash through the aftermath of the battle. The blood fiends and blood waves did not even need to make a move. The people who followed Muronyu's example were all killed. At that moment, the remaining people finally realized the gap between them and Muronyu. It was not that they were too weak, but Muronyu was too powerful. The gap between them was insurmountable. Although Muronyu had not reached the divine grade, the gap between them and the blood fiends was just like the divine grade powerhouses. How dare he take advantage of us and use us to get through? This is ridiculous. Seeing Muronyu quickly disappear in front of them, the divine grade powerhouses who were still fighting the blood fiends were very upset. Perhaps it was because of Murong-yu, but their attacks were much fiercer than before. When Murong-yu landed on the fourth continent, the first divine grade powerhouse had already gone up. Then, more and more people went up. At that moment, Murong-yu had already rushed to the depths of the fourth continent. Sidu Xian, it's best if there really are blood crystal flowers and undying saint souls here. Murong-yu immediately spread his angelic wings and flew at a low altitude. At the same time, he spread his divine thought to the extreme. However, along the way, the entire highland was just like the other 3 highlands. It was barren and there was nothing, not to mention the blood crystal flowers. In the end, Murong-yu rushed to the end, but he did not find anything. This made him depressed, and so did Situ Xian. Boy, you really know how to take advantage of the situation. After Murong-yu reached the end, a divine grade powerhouse stopped not far behind him and looked at Murong-yu indifferently. His eyes were full of displeasure. Swoosh! Before that person could finish his sentence, more powerhouses appeared in Murong-yu's sight. Ha! Murong-yu suddenly laughed out loud. Seniors, are you still going to argue with me over such a small matter? Besides, I didn't get anything. Murong-yu spoke very calmly, but the armor that Hichu Luoshu had transformed into was still on him. It was the same for the Yin-Yang cauldron. The difference in strength between them and Murong-yu was too great. He had no choice but to be extremely careful. After all, if an expert were to suddenly attack, he would definitely not be able to withstand it. With the He-Tu, the Luo-Shu, and the Yin-Yang cauldron, they could at least guarantee his safety. Blood crystal flower. All of a sudden, a peerless grade expert exclaimed. His voice was filled with excitement and excitement. Everyone was shocked. Immediately, they followed the person's gaze and saw a small island in the depths of the lake, not too far away from them. The island flickered with blood-red light. Although it was called an island, it was actually a gigantic blood crystal that was shining with a blood-red light. No one knew if it was a peerless grade blood crystal or a divine grade blood crystal. The blood crystal flower was rooted in the blood crystal. No wonder it was said that the blood crystal flower was born from the blood crystal. It was a small flower that was blooming. While it was crystal clear, it also had a hint of blood-red color. Of course, other than that, there was nothing special about it. It was just like an ordinary flower. Murong-yu frowned slightly. The island and the blood crystal flower seemed to have just appeared. Before this, he was sure that there was nothing in front of him other than the blood lake. Blood crystal flower, is that the undying blood soul? Another divine grade powerhouse exclaimed. Murong-yu immediately saw an illusory figure beside the blood crystal flower. It looked similar to the blood fiend. Blood fiend. Murong-yu suddenly recalled that he still didn't know what desolation looked like. This undying blood soul should be a strand of desolation soul. If the remnant souls looked like the blood fiend, did famine look like the blood fiend as well? Blood crystal flower. Undying blood soul. Both of them were legendary existences that could make a person a sage. If one wanted to leave this world and become a sage, one could only rely on the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul. In an instant, Murong-yu felt that the divine grade powerhouses not far behind him were breathing heavily. Murong-yu could not help but walk to the side. These people were definitely not his friends. Even if they were, they would definitely kill him in the face of the peerless treasures that could make one a sage. A great battle was about to break out. Murong-yu did not want to be killed by the power that would erupt from the battle. The battle broke out faster than Murong-yu had expected. Just as Murong-yu took a step forward, the battle broke out. All of a sudden, dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns unleashed their strongest attacks. They targeted the nearest divine heavenly sovereigns and attacked them without any aim. Boom, boom, boom. The void continued to rupture as spatial turbulence continued to sweep out. However, the strange thing was that their strength could even break the void. However, the ground they were on was not damaged at all. There was not even a hole. Murong-yu quickly retreated. Perhaps it was because Murong-yu was too weak, but the super experts didn't even spare him a glance throughout the entire process. Therefore, no one cared about him as he retreated. If that's the case, I should seize this opportunity to get the blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul, Moronyu muttered to himself. His body swayed, and he became invisible in the void. The moment he became invisible, Moronyu used his angel's wings. Then, he soared into the sky and turned into a black light, rushing toward the island where the blood crystal flower was. Just like before, when Moronyu stepped into the blood lake, countless blood fiends and blood waves soared into the sky. Moreover, the blood fiends were all divine-grade powerhouses. Their strength was really terrifying. Boy, I've already noticed you. When Moronyu was forced out of the void by a blood fiend, a figure appeared beside him out of thin air and pressed a palm against his body. Moronyu turned his head and looked at the super powerhouse with a furious expression. This was because this person did not fly over from afar. Instead, he was directly behind him. It was the divine grade powerhouse who was the first to enter the fourth highland. Moronyu only managed to say one sentence before he spat out a mouthful of blood. The divine grade powerhouse's full force attack landed on his body. If it was not for Hichu Luoshu's protection, he would have been smashed into a bloody mist. Even so, the bones in his body were shattered inch by inch, and his flesh was instantly smashed into a pile of minced meat. Splash! Moronyu did not have time to react or move before he was blasted into the blood lake. The blood lake splashed out a huge wave of blood. Whoosh! The moment he disappeared, the Yin-Yang cauldron turned into a black stream of light and rushed into the blood lake. On the other hand, the divine heavenly sovereign who had ambushed Moronyu merely sneered. His figure flickered as he flew towards the small island with the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul. How despicable! How shameless! Seeing this, many powerhouses who were fighting in the distance could not help but laugh out loud. Ha! A bunch of hypocrites. If it were any of you, I'm sure you would have attacked him too. This kid took advantage of us once, and he wants to do it again? The divine grade powerhouse who struck Moronyu into the blood lake sneered. Everyone was silent for a moment, but they quickly ended the battle in their hands and rushed towards the island. If that person got there first, they would not get share of the two treasures. As for Moronyu, in fact, he was already severely injured after being hit by the divine heavenly sovereign. He immediately knew that he would not be able to escape the fate of being thrown into the blood lake. Therefore, he immediately recalled the Yin-Yang cauldron. However, before he could recall the Yin-Yang cauldron, he was already thrown into the blood lake. In Hichu Luoshu, the Chaos Holy Meridian burned wildly. As for Yangqin's power, it was directly borrowed by Moronyu. In an instant, Hichu Luoshu exploded with a dazzling divine light that protected him. At this moment, he was already in the blood lake. Suddenly, an extremely powerful pressure came crashing down on him from all directions. Hichu, can you put me into the Hichu Luoshu world? Moronyu roared as he felt the fatal threat. When he fell, he did not have time to enter the Hichu Luoshu. One could only imagine how quickly he was thrown into the blood lake. No, if I forcefully put you in, you might enter the spatial turbulence, Hichu immediately said in a low voice. Damn it! Moronyu cursed. The life force in his body quickly washed over him and healed his body. At the same time, Hichu controlled Hichu Luoshu to charge toward the blood lake. Bang! However, at this moment, a huge claw appeared out of nowhere and slammed into Hichu Luoshu. Puffed. Moronyu spat out a mouthful of blood. His body, which had been partially healed, was once again severely injured. However, he was somewhat gratified that Hichu Luoshu could resist the invasion of the blood lake. In fact, although the blood lake was powerful, it could not do anything to Hichu Luoshu. However, if Hichu Luoshu wanted to protect Moronyu, it could only release a large amount of power. This power came from burning the Chaos Holy Meridian. Once the Chaos Holy Meridian was completely burned, Hichu Luoshu would still be fine, but it would not be able to continue protecting Moronyu. Whoosh, 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 the blood fiends crazily charged over from all directions. Waves of blood carried with them a terrifying aura that could destroy the world as they swept towards Murong-yu in an attempt to slap him to death. Chapter 11:17. Crisis. Crisis. Murong-yu fell into the most intense crisis in history. If he couldn't escape from the Blood Lake, it was very likely that he would be annihilated here. However, the more dangerous it was, the calmer Murong-yu became. He didn't panic. The life force in his body was still rushing at an incomparably fast speed. Meanwhile, Suhao was swept up by Hichu Luoshu. He turned into a stream of light and quickly shot into the distance. He originally wanted to rush out of the Blood Lake, but there were really too many blood beasts around him. Moreover, the blood waves were surging into the sky, giving him no chance to leave the Blood Lake at all. Therefore, he could only avoid those powerful blood beasts first. Invisibility. Even though he knew that invisibility was useless, Murong-yu still turned invisible without hesitation. Elephant step with great strength. With his swoosh, Murong-yu turned into a stream of light and shot towards the depths of the Blood Lake. He was so fast that even those blood beasts that had reached the saint-level realm couldn't react in time. Rumble. However, this couldn't allow Murong-yu to escape the attacks of the blood beasts and the blood waves. Even though he was extremely fast, the attacks of the blood beasts still landed on Hichu Luoshu continuously. He too and the Book of the Luo were completely unharmed. However, the overflowing damage continued to bombard Murong-yu's body, smashing his regenerating body again and again. Murong-yu's heart was burning with rage. Although Life Force had an extremely terrifying recovery ability, destruction was always much faster than recovery. Often, he had only recovered a portion of his body when the blood beasts slapped down, and his body was almost smashed into a pile of mud again. More and more blood beasts appeared. The danger Murong-yu encountered grew stronger and stronger. However, the Blood Lake was bottomless. Murong-yu sank quickly, but he didn't reach the bottom of the lake. On the other side, above the Blood Lake, countless saint-level experts rushed towards the small island crazily, wanting to snatch the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul. In the beginning, the human experts were still attacking each other, trying to send the others flying so that they could monopolize the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul. However, powerful blood fiends appeared one after another, bombarding them until they were a little overwhelmed. In the end, dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns even gathered together to fight against the blood fiends as they slowly approached the island in the lake. Bang! 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 Dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns of the human clan were very powerful. Before the blood waves could get close to them, they had already shattered them. Even the saint-level blood fiends were no match for them, and they were killed one after another. One after another, large numbers of them fell. However, even so, the number of blood fiends chasing after Murong-yu did not decrease. On the contrary, the number of blood fiends chasing after Murong-yu increased. Could it be that I have to risk the possibility of entering the turbulent space to enter the Hichu Luoshu? Murong-yu thought. At the bottom of the Blood Lake, if he wanted to enter Hichu Luoshu, he would have less than a 5% chance. It was very likely that he would rush headfirst into the turbulent space. Let's risk it. If there is no other way, I can only enter the turbulent space. Murong-yu roared in his heart. Unless there was no other choice, Murong-yu did not want to enter the turbulent space. This was because once he entered the turbulent space, it was almost impossible for him to come out. However, if he was here, he could still give it a try. The Hichu Luoshu covered Murong-yu's entire body and blocked the attacks from the blood fiends and blood waves. It also blocked the invasion of the Blood Lake. However, although the Hichu Luoshu was powerful, Murong-yu was unable to unleash the true power of the Hichu Luoshu. Therefore, some of the power of the blood still invaded his body. Murong-yu's physical body was in a continuous cycle of repair and destruction. When the power invaded his body, Yu's physical body started to be destroyed rapidly. The Blood Fiend's attacks only shattered Yu's physical body, but his bones and flesh were still intact. However, the power of the Blood Lake was destroyed directly and nothing was left. Yu was shocked and furious. He frantically converted the power in his body into life force and rushed his body even more frantically. However, although the life force was strong, it could not match the power of the Blood Lake. His body was still disappearing at a rapid pace. Flame of primal chaos. Yu took out the yin-yang cauldron again. However, it was different from what he had expected. After the yin-yang cauldron was taken out, Yu felt a strong pressure from it. Even the flame of primal chaos emitted by the yin-yang cauldron could only cover an area of less than 1 mile. Moreover, an extremely strong pressure was constantly pressing down on him. This was the endless pressure from the Blood Lake. The flame of primal chaos that was being squeezed by the yin-yang cauldron kept shrinking. However, the flame of primal chaos was still the flame of primal chaos. After it enveloped Yu, the blood around him was directly burned and destroyed. Even the Blood Fiend's attacks were destroyed and could not hit Hichu Luoshu or the yin-yang cauldron. This gave Yu a chance to catch his breath. However, the amount of energy Yu was consuming with each passing moment had greatly increased. This was because the yin-yang cauldron was under too much pressure. He had to use all his strength to control the yin-yang cauldron. Once his power weakened, the flame of primal chaos would be suppressed, and Yu would be in the same predicament as before. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yu quickly repaired his severely damaged physical body. With a thought, Yu directly soared into the sky and left the Blood Lake. At this moment, Hichu's voice rang in Yu's ears. Although the blood in the Blood Lake has an extremely terrifying destructive power, if you can use it to refine your physical body, it will be more effective than the blood crystals. Yu was stunned. You want me to refine my physical body in the Blood Lake? With your current strength, even with Hichu Luoshu and the yin-yang cauldron, you are no match for those in the divine, heavenly sovereign realm. You might even be killed. Even if they can't kill you, they can easily throw you into the turbulent space. If you want to contend with them, you have to break through to the peerless divine, heavenly sovereign realm first. Now, you have the opportunity, Hichu said in a deep voice. Yu pondered. Hichu's words made sense, but it was too dangerous to cultivate here. He would fight to live from the brink of death. Although it was dangerous, if he could break through here, he would have a foothold no matter how big the desolate world was. Moreover, only after he reached the divine, heavenly sovereign realm would he have the possibility of destroying the desolate's heart. Sink! Yu's heart skipped a beat. He immediately dove into the depths of the Blood Lake. During this process, the Blood Fiends continued to attack him and chase after him. However, Yu soon realized that as he continued to descend, the Blood Fiends continued to chase after him. However, they had unknowingly slowed down. Yu could even see hesitation appearing on the faces of the Blood Fiends. Yes, they were hesitating. It was as if the depths of the Blood Lake were forbidden to them, and they did not dare to approach. Moreover, their attacks became more violent. It was as if they were trying to stop Yu from continuing to dive. However, it was obvious that no matter how violent their attacks were, they could not stop Yu from descending. Or rather, they could not stop the flame of primordial chaos. Soon, Yu confirmed his guess. After Yu had descended to a certain depth, the Blood Fiends stopped in unison and let out earth-shattering roars at him. However, they did not dare to go any deeper. They did not even dare to use their strength. Yu continued to dive. Whoosh! Suddenly, an extremely powerful suction force covered Yu's body. Before he could react, Limia had already pulled him over. Yu felt the scenery in front of him change. Then, he appeared in an unfamiliar space. Endless blood-red, murderous aura covered the entire space like a fog. The ground was also blood-red. In fact, you could even feel the earth and the void trembling. However, There was no fresh blood or powerful blood fiends. In fact, Moronyu even had a very strange feeling in his heart. He felt that the void here was very close to him. No, it should be said that the void here and everything here wanted to be close to him. It was as if they had met their own kind. What's going on? Moronyu did not remove the Hichu Luoshu and the Yin-Yang cauldron above his head. This space seems to treat you as its own kind, Hichu guessed. Moronyu could not help but stagger. This is the depths of the desolation's heart, right? I am a human. How can I be the same kind as the desolation? However, at this point, he stopped talking. This was because he felt that the blood-red fog was quickly rushing towards him. He did not feel any murderous intent or murderous aura from the fog. On the contrary, Moronyu felt waves of excitement and closeness. Moronyu was shocked. What was going on? Did the desolation really treat him as its own kind? I know. The desolation is a life form born in the endless chaos. It has an innate closeness to the chaos. You have the chaotic celestial body and the yin-yang cauldron. The desolation may have felt these and treated you as its own kind. Is that true? Moronyu's face was filled with doubt. However, after thinking about it, he felt that it was a little possible. Since that's the case, I'll use this to strengthen my physical body. With a thought, Moronyu removed the He-Tu and Luo-Shu. However, the yin-yang cauldron was still suspended above his head. However, the flame of primal chaos that fell down did not envelop him. This place was too dangerous. Moronyu did not dare to relax at all. Otherwise, once the desolation knew that Moronyu was not its own kind, it would definitely kill him. Hichu, if you feel that something is wrong, immediately put me into the Hichu Luoshu, Moronyu said in a deep voice. After coming to this special space, Moronyu could already enter the Hichu Luoshu without rushing into the chaotic space. After saying this, Moronyu began to guide the blood-red fog to temper his body. Chapter 11:18. The blood-red mist was a baleful aura that possessed extremely terrifying power. In a desolate world, the entire space was filled with this evil spirit. However, there were some differences between the evil spirit in the desolate world and here. The evil spirit in the desolate world was gray, and the entire world was gray. However, the evil spirit in the space where Moronyu was located was blood-red. It was even stronger and purer than the evil spirit in the blood crystal. It was much stronger than the evil spirit in the desolate world. After Moronyu let go of Hichu Luoshu, his entire body was drowned by the blood-red evil spirit. If it were anyone else, they would have exploded and died the moment they came into contact with the evil spirit. However, Moronyu did not feel any discomfort. He even felt a sense of comfort. The blood-red evil spirit was similar to the blood crystal. It had the ability to destroy and repair. Moreover, it was much more powerful than the divine crystal in terms of destruction and repair. 1,000 times? It was probably more than that. Moreover, because the desolate world had recognized Moronyu as its own kind, the evil spirit did not have any intention to kill Moronyu. This meant that Moronyu would not be killed. His flesh and bones were constantly being attacked by the evil spirit, but they were constantly being repaired. After each cycle of destruction and repair, Moronyu could feel the strength of his body increasing by a bit. His fleshly body was constantly growing stronger. In the end, Moronyu even sat down with his legs crossed. He did not care if the desolate world would discover the truth and realize that he was not its own kind. This was a rare opportunity. He had to take advantage of this rare opportunity to improve his physical body as much as possible. It would be best if he could break through to the peak of the 9th heaven of the divine grade. He might even reach the sacred body level. Like a whale swallowing water, Moronyu sat down and took the initiative to devour the evil spirit. In an instant, countless baleful auras rushed over like a storm and were sucked into Moronyu's body. Time flew by, and Moronyu's physical body continued to strengthen. At this time, the battle outside had already ended. The blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul had already been taken by someone else. What Morong you didn't know was that after the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul were taken away, Desolate seemed to be furious. The blood lake in his heart went berserk, and terrifying blood waves rushed out. As for the blood fiends, they seemed to be no longer suppressed. One by one, they rushed up to the high ground and started slaughtering those people. Even the blood crystal mines outside were filled with blood fiends. Fresh blood was constantly gushing out from everywhere. The blood crystal mines were like torrents, filled with blood that filled the sky. In an instant, countless experts were killed. Even dozens of divine, heavenly sovereigns had been killed. Ever since Murong Yu had been thrown into the blood lake, divine heavenly sovereigns had arrived one after another to compete for the immortal blood soul and the blood crystal flower. Therefore, when Desolation was enraged, only a portion of the divine grade powerhouses were able to escape. Dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns were left in the blood crystal mine forever. It seems like many years have passed. Why is there no movement? Did that guy take the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul for himself? In the Hichu Luoshu world, Situ Xian was somewhat depressed as she paced back and forth. Situ Xian and Yang Qin didn't know that Murong Yu had been thrown into the blood lake. That was why Situ Xian suspected Murong Yu. If she knew that they were at the bottom of the blood lake, would she faint from fear? When dozens of divine heavenly sovereigns and countless experts of other realms were killed in the blood crystal mine, Desolate World was invaded by the God realm. Of course, this invasion was only a matter of numbers. After those from the God realm entered Desolate World, they found themselves in a tragic situation. Even if a quasi-sage entered, they would only reach the heavenly God realm. Realms had no advantage over people in Desolate World. However, Desolate World was a world for cultivating the body. Many people cried after entering Desolate World. They had no advantage in realms, and their bodies were even more tragic. Any random person from the Desolate World could knock them down. Therefore, many people who entered Desolate World were either killed or captured by some tribes and turned into slaves. Of course, slaves like them were treated well. After all, they were from the God realm, so they more or less knew some cultivation methods and battle skills. These tribes captured them to force them to tell them about their battle skills and cultivation methods. Many tribes captured many people from the God realm. Many people then found out that there was another world outside of Desolate World. Year after year passed. Perhaps it was a few decades, or perhaps a few centuries. On this day, Murong Yu, who had been sitting cross-legged and cultivating, suddenly emitted a blood-red light. Half a day later, his body shook violently, and an aura that was more than 100 times stronger than before erupted from his body. Divine Heavenly Sovereign, I finally broke through. Murong Yu couldn't help but shout. After cultivating for so many years, his body finally broke through, and he stepped into the ranks of the top experts in Desolate World. Moreover, after his body broke through, his cultivation also broke through the suppression. He soared from the God realm all the way to the sky realm. First heaven of the divine, heavenly sovereign. Murong Yu revealed a faint smile. However, he didn't stop cultivating immediately. Because the murderous aura didn't decrease at all, he could still continue to improve by a few levels. Immediately, Murong Yu continued to sit cross-legged and cultivate. First heaven of the divine, heavenly sovereign, second heaven of the divine, heavenly sovereign, third heaven of the divine, heavenly sovereign. Time passed year after year, and Murong Yu's body kept improving. Haha, cultivating in this place is just too awesome. Not only is my body improving rapidly, but my comprehension has also increased by countless times. Now, I have completely comprehended the 6th level of the chaotic celestial record. Murong Yu laughed wildly in his heart. Not only could the blood crystal temper the body, but it could also improve one's comprehension. What Murong Yu lacked the most now was comprehension. After thousands of years of comprehension, he had finally comprehended the 6th level of the chaotic celestial record. In other words, if he had enough energy to absorb, he could break through to the heavenly sovereign realm and even reach the quasi-saint realm. However, just as he was about to comprehend the seventh level of the chaotic celestial record, he was depressed to find that he couldn't comprehend it at all. It was the same, even though his intangibles had increased by countless times. Moronu guessed that it might be because his cultivation level was too low, so he couldn't comprehend it at all. Perhaps he could only comprehend the next level after he broke through to the peak heavenly sovereign realm or the quasi-saint realm. Moronu felt that it was a pity. However, he was satisfied because his body had reached the ninth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign realm. Ninth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign realm. He was only one step away from becoming a holy being. Ninth heaven of the divine heavenly sovereign realm. It's time to leave this place. Moronu stood up and looked around. He found that nothing had changed here. The murderous aura was still so rich and pure. This should be the depths of Desolation's heart. I wonder if I can destroy it? Feeling the immense power in his body, Moronu felt an impulse. You better not try. If you don't succeed, you'll only have two possibilities: die or be forced to enter the turbulent space. Just as Moronu was about to give it a try, Hichu's voice appeared in his mind. Suddenly, Moronu's enthusiasm was extinguished as though a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. During the time he had been cultivating, Hichu had carefully observed this place. Other than the space and earth, there was nothing else. Moreover, this space was not big. It was only about 1,000 miles in radius. Before this, Moronu thought that as long as he reached the peak of the divine heavenly sovereign realm, he might be able to destroy Desolation's heart. However, when his strength finally reached that level, he found that he was still confused. He had no idea where to start. Desolation's heart was too big. He could only destroy a little bit of it with a punch. To Desolation, this little bit of damage was not even considered an injury. I can't destroy in Desolation world. Do I have to go to the divine world? Moronu was worried. He could not find Desolation's heart in the divine world. Moreover, even if he attacked, his power would be weakened infinitely after entering Desolation world. Let's find the experts of the big tribes in Desolation world and see if they have any ideas. If there's no way, you have to find a way to leave this place. Otherwise, if Desolation revives one day, you'll die immediately. Moronu's eyes flashed coldly. Apart from that, he still had to snatch the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul, as well as take revenge. The guy had thrown him into the blood lake. Moronu would never let him go. However, how should he leave this space? Directly teleport? Just as Moronu was about to leave and enter the Hichu Luo Shu, a force suddenly wrapped around him. The scenery in front of Moronu kept changing. Soon, he reappeared in the blood lake. Roar! 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 As soon as he reappeared, Moronu saw blood fiends all over the place. In an instant, he was shocked. He immediately took out the Hichu Luo Shu and the Yin Yang Cauldron. However, Moronu quickly calmed down. Although the blood fiends were roaring, they did not attack him. On the contrary, they were all in a prostrating position. They lowered their heads and stood not far in front of Moronu, as if they were welcoming their master. What's going on? Moronu was stunned again. Chapter 11:19. The bottom of the blood lake was calm. The waves of blood that had been attacking Moronu and trying to grind him into dust had completely disappeared. The ferocious and furious blood fiends that wanted to kill Moronu were now like slaves crawling in front of Moronu. They don't think I'm their master, do they? Moronu was stunned. If that was the case, he could take these blood fiends into the Hichu Luo Shu and bring them out of the wasteland world. Many of these blood fiends were at the divine level. Even if their cultivation level was not high, they were strong enough to fight against ordinary quasi-saint experts. They were definitely a powerful force. Thinking about everything that had happened in that space, Moronu was even more certain of his guess. However, even if that was the case, he would not treat himself as the master of these blood fiends. The reason why Famine was willing to be close to them was because he was a chaotic celestial body and had not been resurrected. However, once Famine was resurrected, it would be able to see through Murong Yu's true intentions. At that time, they would be mortal enemies. These blood fiends would definitely turn against him. In the end, Murong Yu could only suppress the tempting thought of collecting the blood fiends into the He-Tu and Luo book. With a flash of his body, he entered the world of the He-Tu and Luo book. It's been 10,000 years. Murong Yu, you finally appeared. As soon as Murong Yu appeared, Situ, Xian rushed up and roared at him. Murong Yu looked at Situ, Xian indifferently. I told you not to follow me. What's wrong? Now you're blaming me? Situ Xian's face turned red. She remembered that she was the one who had shamelessly insisted on following Murong Yu. Now that she thought about it, it seemed that she should not blame Murong Yu. Did you take the blood crystal flower and the immortal blood soul for yourself? Situ Xian glared at Murong Yu. Murong Yu's face darkened. Monopolizing the blood crystal flower and the undying saint soul? He didn't even get to see what the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul looked like, and he was almost killed because of them. If it was anyone else, they would have died in the blood lake long ago. How could they have been delayed for more than 10,000 years? No, I was almost killed. And where is your Green Sun tribe? Murong Yu looked at Situ Xian and asked in a low voice. If he wanted to find the big tribes in the desolate world, Situ Xian would be the best person to help him. Otherwise, if he rashly went up to them, which tribe would treat him sincerely? In the end, it was just a big battle. They could only use force to intimidate them. You want to go to our tribe? What do you want? I want to kill your tribe's divine, heavenly sovereign. Murong Yu said lightly, and then the scenery in front of Situ, Xian, and Yang Qin suddenly changed. They saw the iconic gray sky of the desolate world. Outside Xiang village. Mr. Murong Yu, you're back? Murong Yu didn't hide his figure and walked directly toward Xiang village. Soon, the people patrolling outside Xiang village found Murong Yu and the other two. Some people immediately went back to report to Gu Kai and the others, while others came up to greet them. Brother Murong, you're finally back. Murong Yu hadn't even reached the entrance of Sunny Creek village when Gu Kai's loud voice rang out. Then, a figure rushed out quickly. Who else could it be but Gu Kai? When Murong Yu saw Gu Kai, he couldn't help but be surprised. This was because he saw that Gu Kai's strength had risen to the peak of the supreme heavenly sovereign realm. He was only one step away from the supreme heavenly sovereign realm. Moreover, this guy's foundation was extremely stable. He didn't raise his strength by force. As he walked, he created a strong wind. Brother Murong, I thought you had gone back. It's been 10,000 years. You're finally back. Gu Kai couldn't help but sob as he walked in front of Murong Yu. Murong Yu felt helpless. When the blood crystal mine opened 10,000 years ago, he said he would return to Xiang village in a year. However, he didn't expect to be delayed for 10,000 years. Luckily, Gu Kai still remembered Murong Yu's words. You're a few heads taller than me, but you're like a child. It seems that you've been living well these years. Xiang village is finally a tribe. Murong Yu patted Gu Kai's shoulder and said, It's all thanks to Brother Murong's help. Gu Kai smiled. After 10,000 years, although Xiang village still maintained its original appearance, it couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as before. The current Xiang village, no, it should be called Xiang tribe, had become a supreme heavenly sovereign tribe. Its scale was many times larger than Xiang village. Walking in the tribe, Murong Yu found that there were many more experts in the tribe. There were also many experts in the middle heavenly sovereign realm, upper heavenly sovereign realm. In addition to the improvement of the physical realm, these people's movement skills and combat skills had also improved a lot. What they cultivated were the cultivation techniques and battle skills that Murong Yu had left behind. Except for the dragon-elephant prajna art, the other cultivation methods taught by Murong Yu could be spread out. It was because of this that the Xiang tribe became stronger and stronger. After 10,000 years of war, it finally became a large tribe. Brother Murong, I didn't ask for your permission to promote these cultivation methods and combat skills in the tribe. Will you blame me? Gu Kai scratched his head and looked at Murong Yu awkwardly and uneasily. Murong Yu faintly smiled. The reason I'm teaching you these battle skills is so that you can spread them. With the help of these combat skills and cultivation methods, coupled with your strong physical body, your real combat power will increase by several times. Gu Kai nodded with a smile. He could even fight against a supreme heavenly sovereign realm expert with his combat skills and cultivation methods. Before this, he didn't even think about it. Big guy, all the combat skills and cultivation methods in your tribe were taught by this guy? Situ Xian came to Gu Kai's side and asked. Yes, they were all taught by Brother Murong. Gu Kai didn't know who Situ Xian was, but she was by Murong Yu's side, so he didn't hide anything. Good guy, you're too generous. Situ Xian suppressed the shock in her heart and looked at Murong Yu. Along the way, she saw many people of the Creek Sun tribe practicing various combat skills and cultivation methods. There were many kinds of combat skills, and they were extremely exquisite. Even in the Green Sun tribe, they didn't have such exquisite combat skills and cultivation methods. Even if they did, only the geniuses in the tribe were qualified to practice them. But in the Creek Sun tribe, everyone could practice them. They're just ordinary combat skills and cultivation methods. Murong Yu said indifferently. Situ Xian couldn't help but roll her eyes. In the divine world, these might be ordinary combat skills and cultivation methods. But in the wasteland world, they were definitely peerless treasures. In fact, what Murong Yu taught the Creek Sun tribe were not ordinary cultivation methods. They were all cultivation methods practiced by Shengzhen. Part of Shengzhen's cultivation methods came from Hichu, while the other part came from the sects that Murong Yu destroyed or emptied their treasuries. All of them were superior cultivation methods. Mr. Murong, Yin Lai, and the others had also rushed back from outside. When they saw Murong Yu, they all bowed respectfully. They all knew that they were only where they were today because of Murong Yu. Otherwise, they would have been killed long ago. After rejecting Gu Kai's good intentions to hold a banquet, Murong Yu looked at Gu Kai and asked in a deep voice, Gu Kai, what do you think of that question? I came back this time mainly because of you. Murong Yu didn't have to come back to the Creek Sun village, but he had to fulfill a promise from 10,000 years ago. Brother Murong, I've decided to go with you. Gu Kai said immediately. He had been thinking about this question for 10,000 years. You can let go of the Creek Sun tribe. With Brother Yin Lai and the others, I believe that the Creek Sun tribe will only become stronger. They don't need me to protect them anymore. Because more and more warriors are emerging, they can definitely protect the Creek Sun village. Gu Kai no longer had that silly smile on his face, only a dignified expression. Good, then I'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, we'll leave the Creek Sun village. Gu Kai was overjoyed. Then with a put-on sound, he knelt in front of Murong Yu and kowtowed 3 times. Murong Yu didn't say anything, but accepted his kowtow with a clear conscience. Although Murong Yu didn't like these complicated formalities, this was a ceremony for apprenticeship, so it was necessary. I'll be in the Creek Sun tribe for 3 days. During these 3 days, Yangqin and I will guide you in your cultivation. If there's anything you don't understand in your cultivation, you can come and ask. Everyone is welcome. Hearing this, Yin Lai and the others were overjoyed. Immediately, Murong Yu and Yangqin went to the central square of the Creek Sun tribe, ready to accept the crowd's questions. These people's cultivation of battle skills and cultivation techniques were too shallow, and they didn't understand many things. On the other hand, Murong Yu and Yangqin's guidance was extremely simple. After knowing what the other party was lacking in, they immediately sent a ray of light into their minds. This ray of light contained some of Murong Yu and Yangqin's understanding and experience. Of course, it was only a very small part, and it was a very shallow understanding. It was impossible for them to impart all of their cultivation experience to the people of the Creek Sun tribe. But even so, the people of the Creek Sun tribe benefited greatly. Later on, the people of the Creek Sun tribe relied on these cultivation techniques and experience to become the absolute overlords of the wasteland, controlling the entire wasteland. Murong Yu, on the other hand, had become a supreme existence that Sunny Creek Village worshipped for eternity. Didn't many people enter the realm of the gods and get captured by the tribes of the wasteland and become slaves? The other tribes should also be able to obtain the cultivation experience of battle skills and cultivation techniques, right? Even if more people from the realm of the gods entered the wasteland and were captured as slaves, it was impossible for them to impart their cultivation experience to them. Even if they controlled them and could read their memories, they wouldn't be able to obtain their cultivation experience. After all, reading memories and obtaining memories were two completely different things. Reading memories was, at most, just an imitation. But Murongyu's method of sending memories directly into the person's mind made them feel as if it was their own experience. Moreover, it was almost impossible for the people of the wasteland to read the memories of the realm of the gods. This was because the people of the realm of the gods were all much stronger than the people of the wasteland. In the wasteland, they were only suppressed. Unless the people of the wasteland had a higher cultivation level than the people of the realm of the gods. Chapter 1120. How big was the wasteland world? Morongyu had no idea, but he felt that the wasteland world was several times larger than the East Continent. Of course, the wasteland world was not as boundless as the divine realm. Maybe it was because of the space inside the desolation world. There were many top tribes like the Green Sun tribe in the wasteland world. Although divine heavenly sovereigns were rare, there were still some of them. For example, there were several super experts of the divine level in the Green Sun tribe. After staying in the tribe for 3 days, Morongyu and the other 3 set off. Master, are we going to the divine realm now? Gukai asked excitedly on the way. The furthest place he had ever been was the blood crystal mine. He had never been anywhere else. Therefore, he was very excited. Let's go to the Green Sun tribe first, Morongyu answered calmly. The Green Sun tribe is one of the most powerful tribes in the wasteland world. I wonder what it's like. Dr. Sima, the Green Sun tribe must be very big, right? During the 3 days in the wasteland world, Morongyu and Yangqin knew that the people of the wasteland world were practicing. Sidu Xian did not want to be left out, so she began to treat the injured people of the wasteland world. In the end, her identity was exposed. You'll know when we get there, Situ Xian said. Then she came to Morongyu and glared at Morongyu. Don't you have any cultivation methods or combat skills to teach me? When Situ Xian found that Morongyu generously taught the people of the wasteland world a lot of combat skills and cultivation methods, she envied him. Therefore, she wanted Morongyu to teach her some combat skills. However, Morongyu refused at once. Well, it was not a refusal, because he said, I'll teach you when we arrive at the Green Sun tribe and meet the experts there. This sentence made Situ Xian gnash her teeth in hatred. This was clearly an excuse. Therefore, she asked him more than once on the way. Morongyu, on the other hand, didn't pay any attention to her. Even Yangqin was the same. She did not teach her martial arts or battle skills. In fact, top tribes like the Green Sun tribe also had many fighting skills and cultivation methods. Some of the combat skills and cultivation methods were also top-notch. The Fengyan tribe is not far ahead. Be careful. A few days later, while walking, Situ Xian frowned slightly. Wind Cloud tribe? Are they enemies of your Green Sun tribe? Morongyu frowned slightly. More than 10,000 years ago in the Blood Crystal, he seemed to have beaten up a young expert from the Wind Cloud tribe. A trace of disdain flashed across Situ Xian's face. Although the Wind Cloud tribe is powerful, it's nothing compared to the Green Sun tribe. If it were any other time, they would only be able to crawl like dogs. But recently, they have been very close to the Golden Feather tribe. I'm worried that they will do something to me. The Golden Feather tribe, the sworn enemy of the Green Sun tribe, was a top force that could not wait to destroy the Green Sun tribe. Ha! The renowned miracle Dr. Situ indeed passed by my Wind Cloud tribe. What a coincidence! One of our grand elders is not feeling well. Please go and take a look at him. At this moment, a thunderous laughter came from afar. His voice shook the heavens, and layers of ripples appeared in the void. Ding, ding, ding. Gu Kai, who was caught off guard, was immediately forced back several steps by the sound wave. His face instantly turned pale, and the aura in his body surged like a raging sea. Gu Kai was not so badly hurt. Only his chi and chi were churning. But Yang Qin, who was the weakest, was in a more miserable state. Not only was she shaken back, but she also spat out a mouthful of blood. Although she was a level 10 quasi-saint, she was only a divine realm expert here. Her physical body had only reached the inferior realm, so it was normal for her to be injured. However, this injury made Yang Qin feel extremely sullen and humiliated. How could she not be angry when a level 10 quasi-saint was shaken to the point of spitting blood? Situ Xian was also pushed back a few steps. Only Murong Yu remained standing in place, unmoving. Oof. A cold, murderous intent flashed across Murong Yu's eyes as he snorted. Suddenly, the sound waves and the boundless pressure suppressing Gu Kai and the rest disappeared. At this moment, Murong Yu and the rest saw a group of more than 10 people rushing over. All of them had surging chi and chi. They did not come with good intentions. Murong Yu narrowed his eyes. This was a sign that he was ready to kill. Wind Cloud Tribe, is this how you treat your guests? Situ Xian was enraged. She took a step forward and shouted at the experts of the Wind Cloud Tribe. Ha! If Miracle Dr. Situ doesn't like this, then follow us back obediently. Otherwise, the one who spoke was a young man who was even stronger than Gu Kai. As he spoke, the young man's gaze slowly swept across Gu Kai and the rest. Finally, his gaze landed on Murong Yu's face. It's you, you bastard. When he saw Murong Yu's face, the young man was enraged. He gritted his teeth and looked extremely resentful. Murong Yu's face was originally as gloomy as water, but now there was a smile on his face. He took a step forward and stood in front of Situ Xian. Then, he looked at the young man and said, Jiang Huang, I haven't seen you for 10,000 years. Have your broken arms recovered? The young man from the Wind Cloud Tribe was Jiang Huang, who wanted to snatch Murong Yu's Saint Crystal in the Blood Crystal Mine. Back then, Jiang Huang's arms were broken by Murong Yu's punch, and he had to flee pathetically. Jiang Huang was instantly enraged. After that battle, he had become the laughingstock of the Wind Cloud Tribe. Countless people laughed at him. He had always wanted to find Murong Yu and kill him with his own hands to wash away the humiliation he had suffered that day. With a roar, his figure flickered as he arrived in front of Murong Yu. Then, he sent a punch out, shattering the sky as he ruthlessly smashed towards Murong Yu's head. The void shattered and an earth-shattering aura erupted. In an instant, heaven and earth shook. The power shook the 9 heavens. Murong Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. More than 10,000 years ago, Jiang Huang was not powerful. He had just broken through to the exceptional grade realm. However, after 10,000 years, his cultivation level had risen to level 3 of the exceptional grade realm. His aptitude was not bad. Unfortunately, he had encountered Murong Yu. Jiang Huang, you still dare to make a move against me? Murong Yu sneered as he extended his hand and slowly grabbed Jiang Huang's incoming hand. Jiang Huang's hand was extremely fast. Even divine thought could not capture its trajectory. However, Murong Yu's hand was extremely slow. One was fast, and the other was slow. It was very contradictory. However, what made everyone feel strange was that, although Murong Yu's speed was extremely slow, he was still able to grab Jiang Huang's fist. He caught Jiang Huang's fist midway. What's going on? No one knew what was going on. Even Jiang Huang was confused. The lesson I gave you last time wasn't enough. This time, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of the experts in your tribe. I'll let you know what you shouldn't offend. Murong Yu's calm voice rang out. At the same time, he slightly tightened his grip on Jiang Huang's fist. Crack! Jiang Huang's fist was immediately crushed by him. The powerful force was not hindered at all. It turned into a torrent and flowed along Jiang Huang's arm into his body. Wherever the power passed, Jiang Huang's hand broke apart inch by inch and was shaken into a pile of mush. Jiang Huang finally reacted. With a loud roar, he wanted to retreat. However, he was shocked to find that he could not struggle at all. It was as if there was a force that stuck him and Murong Yu together. He could not move. Puff, puff, puff. Similar sounds kept coming out of Jiang Huang's body. Jiang Huang's face went from pale at the beginning to ashen in the end. He stared at Murong Yu with hatred and roared. You crippled me? Murong Yu nodded. You're not too stupid. You know that I crippled you. As he spoke, Murong Yu let go of Jiang Huang's hand. Instantly, Jiang Huang's entire body fell limply to the ground. Disgusting. Sidu Xian could not help but retch. At this moment, Jiang Huang fell to the ground like a pile of mud, curled up into a ball. Without his limbs, body, and head, he was like a ball of cotton. This was because Murong Yu had already shattered all the flesh and bones in his body. Even his godhead had been shattered by Murong Yu. In other words, Murong Yu had almost crippled him. If Jiang Huang wanted to recover to his original state, he would need a large amount of heavenly treasures and energy. It was impossible for him to recover to the peerless grade realm. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Seeing how terrifying Murong Yu was, the people from the Fengyan tribe did not dare to stay any longer. In a flash, they wanted to escape. Whoever leaves will suffer the same fate as Jiang Huang. Murong Yu's indifferent voice rang out. The dozen or so people immediately froze in place, not daring to move an inch. Hand over your storage rings and Dharma treasures. If you lack even one elixir, Jiang Huang will be your example. I'll hand it over. I'll hand it over. These people hurriedly took out their storage rings and Dharma treasures and handed them over to Murong Yu. However, after handing over everything, they did not dare to leave. Instead, each and every one of them looked at Murong Yu in horror. Take him with you. You can leave. Go back and tell your people that if you don't want to die, don't try anything funny. Otherwise, I don't mind destroying the Fengyan tribe, Murong Yu said coldly. Instantly, these people seemed to have been pardoned. One of them even used his energy to wrap up Jiang Huang and rush towards the Fengyan tribe. Chapter 1121. Murong Yu, you crippled Jiang Huang. Do you want the experts of the Wind Cloud tribe to kill you? Situ Xian finally reacted and glared at Murong Yu. Although Murong Yu was powerful, the Wind Cloud tribe was a large tribe after all. How could Murong Yu alone be their match? Murong Yu smiled. I'm going to lure their experts here, but it seems that it's better for us to take the initiative. As he spoke, Murong Yu strode toward the Wind Cloud tribe. Yang Xin and Gu Kai followed without hesitation. Situ Xian was the only one who stood there with a look of hesitation. The Wind Cloud tribe was very close to the Golden Feather tribe and was the sworn enemy of the Green Sun tribe. If she entered the Wind Cloud tribe, she would be a lamb in a tiger's den. Even if the people of the Wind Cloud tribe would not kill her, the people of the Golden Feather tribe would not hesitate to kill her. However, Murong Yu and the other two had already gone. Did she want to go back alone? Given her strength, once her identity was exposed, she would not be able to return to the Green Sun tribe. Bastard! Looking at Murong Yu's back, Situ Xian gnashed her teeth and wanted to slap Murong Yu unconscious. But in the end, she hurried to catch up. I thought you were going to go back to the Green Sun tribe by yourself. Murong Yu chuckled when he saw Situ Xian coming over. Humph! You must be responsible for my safety. If anything happens to me, you'll be responsible. Situ Xian looked at Murong Yu angrily, full of displeasure. Murong Yu was a little depressed. In some ways, Situ Xian was somewhat similar to Kurlon. They were both a little unruly. If you're afraid of death, you can enter my treasure space. Murong Yu said helplessly. Situ Xian glared at Murong Yu. If you die, won't I have to stay in your treasure space forever? I'm not going in. You're not going anywhere. Before Situ Xian's voice fell, a figure shot over from the distance and stood in front of them. A cold voice drilled into the ears of Murong Yu and the others. At this moment, Gu Kai and the others felt as if they had been frozen in ice for 10,000 years. His body stiffened, and even his blood stopped flowing. Even his power was sealed. What terrifying strength! Gu Kai and Situ Xian looked at the person in front of them in surprise. That person was a divine heavenly sovereign from the wind and cloud tribe. Before he even made a move, he had already suppressed Gu Kai and the other supreme heavenly sovereigns. His strength was truly astonishing. Morongyu smiled faintly. Instantly, Situ Xian and the other two felt as if they were bathed in a spring breeze. The feeling of being sealed in ice instantly disappeared. The divine grade expert of the Wind Cloud tribe seemed to have just noticed Murongyu's presence and looked at Murongyu in astonishment. Hey, what's your name? I never kill nameless people. Murongyu looked at him and said faintly. Nyeyongwen was furious. In any case, he was a saint-level expert. Yet, Murongyu was speaking to him as if he was a junior. Could it be that Murongyu was stronger than him? Great elder of the wind and cloud tribe, Nyeyongwen. However, even though Nyeyongwen was furious, he still held back the urge to slap Murongyu to death. Instead, he spoke with murderous intent. The great elder of the wind and cloud tribe should have a deeper understanding of the wilderness. I'll take you down first to understand this world. Murongyu seemed to be talking to himself. As he spoke, he slowly closed in on Nyeyongwen. You're from the realm of the gods? Nyeyongwen was not surprised. People from the realm of the gods had only entered this world 10,000 years ago. Even if they were talented, how much could they improve in 10,000 years? From the original realm to the lower grade, middle grade, or upper grade. Even if they were talented and could reach the absolute grade, it was impossible to reach the divine grade. Most importantly, people from the realm of the gods would be suppressed after entering the wilderness. At first glance, it was obvious that Murongyu was no match for him in the realm of the gods. If he could take him down, the wind and cloud tribe would gain many combat skills and cultivation methods. The rise of the wind and cloud tribe would no longer be a fleeting dream. Nyeyongwen chuckled immediately. Murongyu laughed too. At such a close distance with Nyeyongwen, Murongyu could already feel what Nyeyongwen was thinking. Nyeyongwen wanted to take Murongyu down and get all of Murongyu's combat skills and cultivation methods. Furthermore, wasn't Murongyu also trying to capture Nyeyongwen? Murongyu knew far too little about the desolate world. This time, he went to the Green Sun tribe to talk with the experts there about destroying the heart of the wilderness and even leaving the wilderness. Although Murongyu was powerful, he would definitely be fooled if he knew nothing about the wilderness. Therefore, he had to have a deeper understanding of the world before arriving at the Green Sun tribe, who had a deeper understanding of the world. Of course, it was the senior experts of the divine grade. Murongyu wanted to take down a divine grade expert, either to read his memory or directly control his soul. Kill. Even though Nyeyongwen felt that Murongyu was far weaker than him, he still went all out. With a roar, he stepped in front of Murongyu. Then he stretched out his big hand, which turned into a dragon's claw and transformed into phantoms that shrouded Murongyu. Then, he smashed down hard on Murongyu's head. Yangqin and the others quickly retreated. Situ Xian stared at Murongyu without blinking. She knew that Murongyu was powerful, but Nyeyongwen was an expert of the divine grade. Was Murongyu his match? You're no match for me, Murongyu said lightly, and, at the same time, punched out unhurriedly. Although it was extremely slow, it arrived first and bombarded Nyeyongwen's claw in midair. After a loud bang, the thousands of claw shadows that Nyeyongwen had transformed into suddenly disappeared. As for Nyeyongwen, he was sent flying. Murongyu, on the other hand, was still standing in the same spot as before. His body didn't even sway. The winner was obvious. I said you're no match for me. Now kneel down and surrender. Murongyu's figure flickered, and he had already rushed over. Nonsense! Nyeyongwen was shocked, but when he heard Murongyu's words, he immediately became angry. Rumble, rays of divine light constantly erupted from his body, and the light flickered. Waves of terrifying aura constantly erupted from his body, and the impact caused the void around him to constantly crack. Waves of destructive aura constantly rushed over like a torrent. Gukai and the others' faces suddenly changed. Their figures flickered, and they retreated again. Experts of this level could be killed even if they were hit by the aftershock of the attack. "It's useless," Morongyu said lightly, and with a step, he had already appeared in front of Nie Yongwen. His big hand stretched out, turned into a dragon's claw, and slammed down hard on Nie Yongwen's head. This was the attack that Nie Yongwen had used on him before. If Morongyu directly used it on him, he would be killed instantly. "Die!" Nie Yongwen roared, and the divine light from his fists burst out, and he fiercely attacked Morongyu. Morongyu sneered and clenched his big hand. Puff! The soaring aura and dazzling divine light that burst out of Nie Yongwen disappeared in an instant. At the same time, Nie Yongwen's fists slowly fell down. He even knelt down on the ground with a plop. It was not that he wanted to submit to Morongyu, but from his extremely resentful and angry expression, it was obvious how much he hated Morongyu. He was suppressed by Morongyu. Morongyu's hand was like a huge, sacred mountain that pressed down on Nie Yongwen's body. The terrifying pressure instantly caused Nie Yongwen to collapse. His physical body could not withstand such a terrifying power at all. In the end, he could only kneel. He had no choice but to kneel. If he did not kneel, his physical body would be crushed to pieces. By kneeling, he could use the kneeling posture to remove part of the force. What made Nie Yongwen feel the most humiliated was that as soon as he knelt, the terrifying pressure almost disappeared. However, if he wanted to stand up, the terrifying pressure would completely suppress him. Morongyu was suppressing him. He was blatantly suppressing him. It was a blatant humiliation. This made Nie Yongwen extremely angry, but he could only be angry and could not resist at all. This was because Morongyu's big hand was still clenched on his head. He used all his strength to resist the powerful pressure. If he relaxed even a little, his physical body might be crushed. Judging from Jiang Huang's experience, Nie Yongwen was sure that Morongyu would definitely kill him. Submit or die. Morongyu's big hand clenched on Nie Yongwen's head and said calmly. However, in Nie Yongwen's ears, it was filled with killing intent. Is that Nie Yongwen really a divine, heavenly sovereign? Seeing that Nie Yongwen was suppressed by Morongyu like a dead dog, Gu Kai could not remain calm and looked at Yang Qin and Situ Xian hesitantly. Situ Xian didn't say anything. She was also shocked by Morongyu. How powerful was he to be able to suppress a divine, heavenly sovereign with one hand? One had to know that 10,000 years ago, Su Hao was at most an 8th-level divine, heavenly sovereign. But now, wasn't this increase in strength too terrifying? Did he really go to the Green Sun tribe to suppress the experts of our tribe? This thought suddenly flashed through Situ Xian's mind. He is indeed a divine, heavenly sovereign. But even though they are both divine, heavenly sovereigns, the difference in strength is also huge. In front of the Holy Lord, Nie Yongwen is nothing, Yang Qin said lightly. Then what realm is Master at? Is he a legendary saint? Gu Kai asked in shock. Yang Qin shook her head. Morong, you couldn't be a saint. He was just at the peak of divine, heavenly sovereign. Listening to Gu Kai and Yang Qin's questions and answers, Nie Yongwen was embarrassed and angry. In the end, he even closed his eyes, too ashamed to face anyone. Chapter 1122. However, he quickly opened his eyes and looked at Morongyu with a face full of fear. What are you doing? Nie Yongwen looked at Morongyu in horror. As you wish, I'm going to control your soul. Morongyu smiled faintly. At the same time, he exerted his power and began to seal Nie Yongwen. Impossible. Nie Yongwen was furious. He roared, and the aura in his body fluctuated rapidly. He wanted to fight back. He could not allow anyone to control his soul. However, just as he was about to fight back, Morongyu's hand that was holding his head pressed down slightly. Suddenly, an enormous and irresistible force came, and Nie Yongwen screamed in agony. His entire body was pressed into the ground. The powerful force directly sealed all of his power, making him unable to move at all. Control, Morongyu said faintly. In the next moment, Nie Yongwen, who was originally terrified, angry, and resentful, was like a tame horse. He no longer had those expressions, and there was only respect. Master! Murong-Yu let go of his hand that was holding Nye-Yong-Wan, took a step back, and stood still. Nye-Yong-Wan took the opportunity to get up from the ground and bowed respectfully to Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu nodded and began to read Nye-Yong-Wan's memory. Divine Heavenly Sovereign was already the top existence in Wasteland. Everything they knew was incomparable to people of other realms. Because of that, Nye-Yong-Wan's memory was enormous. Even Murong-Yu could not read all of it in a short time. However, he had plenty of time. Murong-Yu really controlled Nye-Yong-Wan, a divine heavenly sovereign. Sidu Xian and Gu Kai were in disbelief. They looked at each other and then at Yang Qin at the same time. Yang Qin nodded. As a rank 10 quasi-saint who was controlled by Murong-Yu, Yang Qin naturally knew how terrifying and unbelievable Murong-Yu's ability to control people was. Therefore, she nodded slightly. This is too terrifying. This guy can even control a divine, heavenly sovereign. What if he wants to control me? Situ Xian suddenly felt a little scared. Murong-Yu turned around and looked at him with a smile. Your strength is too weak, and you know too little. I'm not interested in you. Situ Xian was shocked. How did Murong-Yu know what she was thinking? Could it be that she could read people's inner thoughts? Thinking of this, Situ Xian was even more shocked. Gu Kai, on the other hand, was not as shocked as Situ Xian. At this moment, he was looking at Murong-Yu with fanatical eyes. The more time he spent with Murong-Yu, the stronger he saw Murong-Yu, and the more he worshipped him. Nye-Yong-Wan, do you really not know how to leave the desolate world and the divine world? Murong-Yu spent a long time reading Nye-Yong-Wan's memories. He understood desolate world, just like Nye-Yong-Wan. However, in Nye-Yong-Wan's memories, there was no way to leave the desolate world. He had never even heard of it. Therefore, Murong-Yu was afraid that he might have missed out something, so he asked directly. Legend has it that there are 8 passages in the desolate world that can travel between the 2 worlds. But where are the 8 passages? I don't know where they are, Nye-Yong-Wan said respectfully. Murong-Yu also knew about the legend of the 8 passages, but it was just a legend. It seemed that no one had ever successfully left the desolate world through those passages. It seems that it won't be as easy to leave as I thought. Murong-Yu shook his head and sighed in his heart. However, when he read Nye-Yong-Wan's memories, he found out that Nye-Yong-Wan was also in the blood crystal mine. It was just that he was part of the group that went there later. From his memories, Murong-Yu found out who obtained the blood crystal flower and the undying blood soul. Most importantly, he found out who threw him into the blood lake. Nye-Yong-Wan, if you don't have anything to do in the Wind Cloud tribe, follow me. If Murong-Yu had a saint heavenly sovereign expert by his side, he wouldn't have to take matters into his own hands. Just like Jiang Huang, who was merely a divine heavenly sovereign, it was too degrading for him to do anything. Holy Lord, please allow me to make the arrangements. Even if Nye-Yong-Wan had something to do, he could only follow Murong-Yu. Actually, Murong-Yu wasn't asking for his opinion when he asked that question. Murong-Yu immediately nodded, and Nye-Yong-Wan quickly disappeared from where he stood. Murong-Yu, are you going to recruit a divine heavenly sovereign every time you go to a tribe? Situ Xian walked up and asked with a frown. If Murong-Yu really did that, although the desolate world was powerful, it would be quickly unified by him. Don't worry, I have no interest in the desolate world, let alone fighting for hegemony here, Murong-Yu said indifferently. In fact, he meant what he said. The desolate world was just a world inside the desolate world. Even if he unified this world and became the overlord of the desolate world, so what? Once the desolate world woke up, they would all die. Moreover, how could this place compare to the divine world? In fact, Murong-Yu seemed to have forgotten that the divine world was not so good now. The desolate world was inside the desolate world, while the divine world was on the desolate world's corpse. Once the desolate world woke up, both worlds would suffer. However, unlike the desolate world, where death was certain, the divine world could escape to other desolate world corpses that had not yet been resurrected. It was not necessarily good. Nye-Yong-Wan, was one of the super experts of the Wind Cloud tribe. When he said he wanted to leave, no one dared to stop him, and no one even asked why. Therefore, they set out on their journey. Morongyu, where are we going if we're not going to the Green Sun tribe? After a while, Sidu Xian found that something was wrong. The Red Cloud tribe. Situ Xian frowned slightly. Although the Red Cloud tribe was not as powerful as the Green Sun tribe, it was not bad. It should be at the same level as the Wind Cloud tribe. Why are we going to the Red Cloud tribe? Sidu Xian did not understand why he suddenly wanted to go to the Red Cloud tribe, so she played the role of a curious baby and asked, to kill people. Morongyu's answer was simple and neat. Did they offend you? Sidu Xian still could not understand why Morongyu suddenly wanted to go to the Red Cloud tribe to kill people. Morongyu turned to look at Situ Xian. Are you the legendary doctor or not? Why do you have so many questions? Yang Qin, Gu Kai, and the others also looked at Situ Xian curiously. Especially Gu Kai. He felt that there was a huge gap between this Dr. Situ and the legendary Dr. Situ. According to the legend, although the Dr. Situ of the Green Sun tribe had excellent medical skills, she was extremely indifferent. Even if she was a patient, she would not say more than a few words. But now, the Situ Xian he saw was chattering nonstop. She didn't even stop talking. If I'm not, then are you? Situ Xian was angry. She hated it when others questioned her medical skills. In fact, anyone who was despised in what they were good would not feel good. In the next few days, Situ Xian was angry all day and did not speak at all. This gave Morongyu and the others some peace. Sacred Lord, the Red Cloud tribe is in front of us. I'll go and lure their divine, heavenly sovereign out first. Nyangwen asked respectfully when they were not far away from the Scarlet Cloud tribe. Morongyu shook his head. No need to go through so much trouble. Just kill your way in. If anyone dares to stop you, kill them without mercy. While speaking, Morongyu took the lead and walked toward the Red Cloud tribe. Nyangwen and the others quickly followed. Gu Kai, on the other hand, was full of excitement. He felt that becoming Morongyu's disciple was the right thing to do. Along the way, Morongyu kept giving him pointers on his cultivation, and occasionally there would be a scene of him fighting a super force alone. How could he not be excited? Who is it? Trespassing into the Red Cloud tribe. When Morongyu and the others arrived in front of the Naked tribe, a group of people walked out and stopped Morongyu and the others. The weakest one was in the upper stage, and the leader was a powerhouse in the extreme stage. Scram! Nyangwen shouted and struck out with his palm. Bang! Suddenly, these people were directly sent flying. From the beginning to the end, Morongyu did not look at them directly, and his footsteps never stopped. The enemy is attacking. Nyangwen only sent those people flying, but he did not kill them. Therefore, when they reacted, they issued a series of warnings. Then, the entire Red Cloud tribe was suddenly in chaos. One by one, the powerhouses rushed out and pounced on Morongyu and the others. However, when the crowd saw that it was only Morongyu's group, they couldn't help bursting into laughter. They felt that Morongyu's group was simply here to die and make a fool of themselves. The 5 of them barged into the Red Cloud tribe. Was this not a joke? But soon, they couldn't laugh anymore. Why? Because at that moment, Nyangwen had already released the aura of a divine heavenly sovereign. Suddenly, with Nyangwen as the center, a terrifying aura swept out in all directions like a stormy sea. Bang! 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 Wherever the aura passed, large pieces of the void would shatter, and even the space turbulence would be created. Suddenly, the people who surrounded the Red Cloud tribe were in trouble. One by one, they were shaken into mud. Some were even drawn into the turbulent space and lost forever in the endless turbulent space until their lifespan was exhausted. How dare you? A furious roar came from the depths of the Red Cloud tribe. At the same time, a few big hands covered the sky and covered the earth. A terrifying power exploded and immediately sealed the shattered void, suppressing the aura that Nyangwen released. At the same time, a few shadows flashed from the depths of the Red Cloud tribe and finally appeared in front of Morongyu and the others. Their faces were gloomy, and they looked at Nye with murderous intent. In their eyes, only Nye, a divine heavenly sovereign, was there. The others, including Yu, were automatically ignored by them. For divine heavenly sovereigns, their strength seemed to be stronger than the Fengyan tribe. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.